pushing to talk, right? So we talked briefly about Kirkham Motorsports. I think last week you wanted me to go ahead and invite Dave. I talked to Dave Thursday of last week. He was coming, and then Friday called me and said because of 4 orders that just came in, he wasn't going to be able to make it. And so I told him I would just give a good presentation, or my best presentation, to the commission, kind of get a feel of where they were at. Again, as you know, these kind of projects take a tremendous amount of money to get going, and so they want to have kind of a feeling that maybe this project has some potential before they start putting money into renderings, etc., so on, and outreach and lawyers. So really quickly, I'll just go over Kirkham Motorsports. Next slide, please. So really quickly, Kirkham's family has been in the restoration business since the late 80s, doing different types of restoration. In 1994, I believe, they actually started with their first 427 Shelby Cobra in more of a restoring, but they quickly found out that there's not a whole bunch of them, number one, but number two, they had contact with a company in Poland and actually could produce the bodies and some of the other parts for the Shelby Cobra, and actually just get into more of the replicas. So since 1994, they've actually just been building the Shelby replicas and all different models within the Shelby, and become very successful at that. And then also started the process of doing other types of restoration or building other types of vehicles as a specialty. And so they have some specialty vehicles that they also build out. They presently assemble and build the most accurate replicas across the world. That's their tagline that they say. And they are one of the leading manufacturers in the component kit car industry. So they build kit cars, which is what the replica is, and they do a very good job. Next.
Can I ask you a question, James?
Yes.
On that, they build a kit or they build a real car?
So they build a real car.
Okay.
They have a kit that they have produced over the years, but they use many of the, original manufacturer parts that they can. But they've also started the process of having better parts that they put on it, so the car's more stable, etc., so on. So it's not an exact replica per se as a restoration, but it is a very functioning car that a lot of people really are in high demand because it is a much safer car. Yeah.
I was just wondering if it was if they were just building little tiny cars for people, or whether or not it was an exact replica.
They're
car.
pretty good replicas of the vehicle, but like I said, again, I think to Commissioner Wilson's point, I mean, they can build a replica, exact replica if you want, or they can build a replica that has a better suspension, better steering, etc., so on. So I think they're very flexible in that. But they do build a very good product, which I think is something important for the Commission to be aware of. It's not a company that you're going to have a lot of complaints about, because they have a very high standard and a very good reputation. So next. Thank you. Okay, so go back. Can you go back one? I want to make sure I didn't miss one. So their current headquarters are in Provo. They've been in Provo, Utah County, for a while. But I think what they felt is they're getting kind of built around, and they're ready to move to a more rural location. And Morgan was one of the locations that they started really looking at. I think they've been looking at Morgan for a while because they've been having this discussion for a long period of time. I actually talked to someone else who said they had a conversation with them about 5 years ago, and they thought they were looking at moving about 5 years ago. So I think they're in a position now where they're really ready to move forward. I have a revenue listed about $5 million annually, but that's kind of a guess. I don't think that's an accurate number until we get some financials from them. If we move to the next step, that will give us a better understanding of what kind of sales annually that they have. Again, the financial position of the company is extremely important to us if we're going to look at any type of financial assistance or using in the financial tools. But that would probably be the next step. But it does appear that they're in a good financial, stable position right now, and they're probably positioned to make move their headquarters if that's what their choice is to do. And then just some general information that the Cobra frames and bodies are actually manufactured in Poland, and then those two large components are shipped, and then the rest of the vehicle is assembled at their headquarters. And so there's not like a heavy industrial use at their headquarters site. It's more of light manufacturing and assembling. Next. And so really at this point, what I've talked to Dave about is that, again, they're looking for more of a rural location. They would like to be closer to the south end of Morgan County. A lot of their business base is high-end, high net worth individuals. And so Deer Valley, Park City, Heber, you know, that's a lot of the recreation destination a lot of these folks fly into, and so they like to have accessibility to that side of the mountain. And so that's kind of where they're thinking. They're hoping between 500 and 1,000 acres. Now, they haven't had any time to really look and talk to anybody. There may not be property in any of that end of the county that's available, but that's a preference, not necessarily a deal killer, according to Dave. And they run what they call a clean business, which again isn't a heavy manufacturing, not a lot of noise, not a lot of air pollution, not a lot of heavy traffic, not a lot of high industrial use, not a huge water demand, electrical demand, all those type of things that sometimes create, you know, issues within the infrastructure of the county. And he wanted to make sure that we were aware that it was a very clean business, and they run a clean business model on top of that.
James,
Yes.
another question.
Yes.
The south end of Morgan County, that's towards East Canyon. Is that where they want it, or?
I don't think they've settled on a location. I think what he's saying is that his preference would be able to get to the other side of the mountain one way or the other, whether it's down 66 runs all the way over.
65 and 66.
Yeah, and so they would like to have some of that accessibility, right? And so that's kind of what they're thinking, but I don't think necessarily they've got to the point where they've been looking for property to the extent where they're making offers or evaluating that, because they want to get through this first phase of seeing if it's something the county would be interested in, and if it's something that fits in your economic development and your county, you know, vision. So I don't think they've got that far. That said, no. I think they want buffers.
Sorry, there, now my mic's on. Now it's
Yeah.
off.
Yeah. No, Commissioner, I think that they're not looking for 500 to 1,000 acres so they're sprawled out and they have all this space. I really think they're looking for that so they can centralize and they can have some buffers between them and other parts of the community. I don't know if
That's
they're
what
looking,
I'm thinking.
yeah, I don't know if they're looking for a track.
They ought to have some kind of
it would make
test
sense.
facility.
Yeah. So that may be a piece of it, you know, maybe the track.
Track.
And they understand that there is some issues with noise, so they want to be a little ways from folks. But again, that would be a good conversation to have with them about the impact of their present headquarters on the community.
But one of the issues, I mean, we can be open to the idea of them coming here, but the location that they ultimately choose is also going to have a lot of bearing on whether or not it's an
Correct.
appropriate use in that area.
Yeah, and some of that would be the conversation that we probably want to have more on a one-on-one, like, you know, here are preferred areas within the county that would make sense, or if this is going to be in this area, this is the kind of buffer we would need. And at, let's say, a racing decibel of 110 decibels, you need to have 2 miles between that and, you know, a residential population center or a residential neighborhood. You know, those are, I think, conversations we can start having to, you know, eliminate some of those specific concerns for sure. But again, that's something that Dave will, I think something that if we have the conversation with their impact to their present headquarters, you know, and maybe talking to that community a little bit to find out, okay, you know, pros and cons of having a headquarters like this in a urban, rural, you know, community, you know, what does that look like?
I just don't know if we can find 500 to 1,000 acres. That's a lot of acres.
That's
Yeah.
a huge amount.
Correct. Now, again, I don't
I
know if
think
these are
we
deal.
should note that it's not the county's responsibility to find property. That would be the business. The question more is, would the county support that type of business?
Correct.
Now,
And
if they can, they'd
what
have to figure out.
stipulations you may put on.
Yeah. And I suppose any stipulations could have an impact on where they might consider
Yeah,
doing it.
correct.
But like Robert said, yeah, what the area is going to depend on whether we can support it or not. So
Yeah. We kind of got
Yeah.
the
chicken
cart
before
and
the
the
egg,
horse
or
here.
Which again is really what they're looking for. I mean, they're the question to them is if this falls within your business model, what you want as a community. Okay, so now what are we looking at? Where could we put it? What kind of impact? What's the community feel? Would it be better in this location or this location? How far do we need to keep it away from residential? Do we want it to be seen from major transportation corridors? I mean, those are, I think, will be conversations that I think would move into the next stage. And I think he understands. I think Dave understands all that. He realizes realizes he's operated in rural communities before and understands the challenges, and in urban communities. So, but that is a large number. I smiled at that number also. So, and then I think something that we'll move into this next part of the presentation is really what he's looking for is a vacation destination model. We talked a little bit about this, but what this is instead of having just a manufacturing and assembly building, he's trying to make it a destination, understanding that people travel from all over the country, if not all over the world, to come and be a part of this, you know, and whether it's to be part of driving, you know, one of the Cobras, or whether it's an experience of seeing them, or whether it's actually the purchasing, you know, and the delivery of it. He wants to build that experience within this headquarters. And so if you could go to the next slide, please. So he referenced the High West Distillery, and this is a good example, I mean, not of the right industry, but of the right concept of creating a destination feel around a product that you're purchasing. Next slide, please. Next slide. And so these are just some pictures from the distillery, and what you see is that there's different amenities within the development. And so the first one on the left, of course, is if you're going to be selling spirits, you probably need to have a place to serve them. So they have kind of a throwback old bar there, and you can go in and you can partake, do your tastings, etc., so on. But they also have not residential, but short-term areas where you can come and you can stay for a day or two and have the whole entire experience. So you can get some sales tax plus some TRT tax. Next slide, please. And then many, again, of these destination retail / developments will have other amenities like restaurants, souvenir stores, etc., so on. And so there's kind of a 2-for-1. You get a short-term rental, a TRT tax. You may get a sales tax on top of that, and then additional sales tax from other amenities within. And then you have a short-term stay, very few services used, and then they spend those dollars and then they head back to where they live. So that, I think, is his overarching kind of vision of what it will look like. Now, I don't know what he's going to have in it. I think he'd probably have to come up here to Morgan and kind of get a feel, but also then he's probably already started on kind of the model, what this will look like what a restaurant, you know, and a couple different amenities within his development. So when we start talking about some of the areas we really focused on, I think if we can find the property, it probably fits into the business and economic development model we've been looking at for a while. So next slide. And then into some of the questions again that will come up is supportive zoning requests to change, what that would look like. Some communities have been, you know, very hesitant to do any type of zoning requests, or would that fall more in a PAD? And could he build it out in a planned area development concept? Is there financial assistance? Would RDAs or other types of financial tools be available? And then again, conceptually, from an economic development standpoint, if the issues and or concerns with where it's located can be addressed, is this something the county would be interested in him continuing to have some planning and put some folks on? Spend a little money to bring you something that he would spark your interest, or at least lead to the next step. So that's kind of, I think, the purpose of the conversation tonight. I think we've had some of those discussion points kind of come up. And so I'm happy to pass any information along to him if we want to go to next steps, or if it's something you're too concerned about, if the amount of acreage, or if it's maybe he's down to a different amount of acreage, and maybe that was just pie in the sky. He never took any time to really vet that. So thoughts, commissioners?
I'm just wondering, as was said, is where would they want it, and whether or not we could find 500 acres, because I don't see that in Morgan County, but I'd love to see a place like that. But it's just, to me, it's just going to take area,
Okay.
but I wouldn't mind talking to them.
Is this the type of development that you feel would fit into the Morgan County economic development concept and what you're trying to attract here? It kind of fits in the tourism and outdoor rec feel a little bit, but it doesn't. It's huge. It's kind of shoehorned just a pinch to get in there. But is this something that you feel comfortable about? I mean, I've talked to some other folks about this, and they're super interested. You know, Tooele has a little motorsports spot out there that, you know, a lot of folks travel to. And so I don't think it would be something as robust as that. And I'm not even sure that the use would be the same. You know, maybe the use is more for delivery of vehicles than it is for public access. But, you know, it's kind of, if this is something you're comfortable with, then I hate to ask him to move forward and spend money, because all this stuff costs money, if there's hesitancy from the commission's perspective of even moving to the next step. So I want to be able to pass along something to him where you feel comfortable to this point, and he can make the decision if he wants to expense into the next step.
So James, just on the one, and I apologize for, on the financial assistance, would that, at what point in time would that come again?
Yeah, so that's a process that probably is a little bit down the pike a little bit, right? Because if the commission feels like this is something we feel comfortable, if you can find the right piece of property, it fits into our model, then they would have to go find the property, right? And then the cost of the property would be something that would be associated with the RDA, right? Because then maybe if the cost becomes a portion of that barrier, then the RDA is a tool that can help offset that cost. And so I can't really tell you, but it is a piece that's a ways out, because they would have to do their modeling, do their financial, identify their financial position. Then we'd have to go through the process of them finding a piece of property. Then maybe we'd look at an RDA. We can't get to the RDA until we know what those costs are going to be. Does that? I'm going to refer a little bit to Robert too, because he has a lot of experience in this. But I do feel like it's a ways out.
So I would say that from the overall question of whether or not it fits within an economic development model consistent with the county, I would argue that it does. I think it could be a potentially good use, particularly if it's developed out in a way that's similar to the High West Distillery, because that would be a tourism-based sort of use. So I don't have any issues that way. They obviously are going to be responsible for finding a property that will work for them, and I'm going to evaluate their zoning request and the context of that, and whether it's done as a planned area development or we tailor a zone, you know, to fit the property, or if it fits within an existing zone, great, you know. But depending on where that's located, that's going to be the rub in that issue. They may find something that's perfect, and we think the location is great, and it's not a problem at all. With respect to like a community reinvestment area or something like that, I can see us supporting that if there's a high infrastructure load that they need to do, and particularly if that infrastructure would facilitate their development in the area, and or improve the infrastructure in a given area. That would be something I'd be looking for in terms of what they're proposing to do.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other input or anything else you'd like me to relay back to the Kirkers?
I agree with what's been said.
Okay. I feel like then that they would probably be comfortable in moving to the next step. I feel like that's kind of where they're at right now. I think they understand all that. So I will relay that to Dave, and then I will return back to both commissioners and just give them quick reports. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, Leslie.
If they come again, tell them to bring a car.
Test drive would help you make your mind up.
Good evening, Commissioners. I gave you some information when I came in tonight. Julie also prepared a packet for you of additional requests that have come in since we met last. I feel like Julie and I kind of worked against each other a little bit, because some department heads went to her, some came to me. So you're going to have to kind of look at both packets to get what the requests are. I don't know if you want to go through one by one. I'm not sure how you want to handle this.
So, I don't feel like some of these are not new requests. They were reviewed in our initial budget meetings, and decisions were made regarding those at that time.
Yes.
I'm not opposed to discussing if that's the desire of the commission. We can definitely discuss that again, but they were already addressed previously. those requests are the sheriff's office requests. Those have already been discussed. We can discuss them some more if you'd like. The library requests. I don't know that we had these numbers at the time of the budget. I don't think we had the comparison numbers, but we did discuss the wages individually. And maybe it would be helpful just in general for the county departments to understand how we approached the wage adjustments during the budget session. Do
Will
think
you
that'd
be
helpful?
attending our department head meeting on Monday?
Yeah,
I think that might be a good
so
time
we can
to
talk to them
discuss.
then about
I was
that.
hesitant.
Yeah, I was trying to remember, yes, Monday. I'll just mention it right now briefly, and then we can
Okay.
go over it there and answer any questions. And commissioners, if I get any of this wrong, correct me here. But the gist of the discussion was, initially, we did a 5% cost of living adjustment for all employees across the board. So everybody got a 5% adjustment. We then went through all of the employee adjustment requests. Some departments made adjustment requests, some did not. Some of those requests were large, some were small. We essentially granted all of the requests that were asked for, capping them at a total 10% increase.
That would be.
Correct, including the total, yes, including the COLA. So an additional 5% on top of the COLA. For the departments who did not make a request for an increase, we added 3% to all of their employee wages. Sorry, we did the COLA plus we put 3% in a pot, in a fund for adjustments after they go through and do their employee evaluations. So that's the approach we took. And from my perspective, we took that approach for a couple of reasons. One, we felt like pay increases, whether the county budget can support it or not, to do massive pay increases of 15 and 20%, as was the request in some cases, was just not something we were willing to do at that point. And I think, our constituents would hope that we'd be frugal with the funds that we do have. Some years we don't have that luxury of increases, and there's been a lot of time where there haven't been increases. So I think 10% is a pretty large and generous increase in most cases, but that was kind of the approach we took. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, Chair, can you mention elected officials and then department heads?
Yeah, and I can't remember what we did there.
We also did the 5% COLA.
We did the 5% COLA.
I think also the reason we put 3% in there is because we were hoping that our department heads would grade the people. I think we have good employees, but I don't know as everybody deserves full increases every year, and that's what we were hoping our department heads wouldn't do, is just say, oh, we can give them up to 5, here's 5, They need to be working hard and deserving. That's how we do it in the public sector. We are raised, or private sector, sorry. In the private sector, we get raises based on how we perform. And I think that should be a performance increase. The COLA is one thing. The others.
So elected
performance.
officials, we did 8%. So that was the COLA plus 3%.
COLA plus 3, and I thought we also did that with the department heads.
The department heads, we put 3% into the bucket.
And they have to have
If they
it back.
didn't ask for something, for those that did ask for something in addition, a lot of those we gave initially. I'm just looking through individually here to see.
Well, and while Chair Newton's looking at that, I just want to appreciate our Joey and Human Resource Department for working on that merit evaluation. And we've been working on that for the past few years to get to a point where we can say how do we evaluate for that merit increase and what does that look like? So appreciate all the work you've done on that.
I should mention, there were a handful of positions that are very entry level, for example, the library pages and snowplow drivers that ended up with an increase of greater than 10%. Those increases are about 15% total. That was just trying to get those wages up into a little higher range. But those are starting out pretty low. I mean, they started at $10.62 an hour. They're up to $12.21 an hour for the wages.
So I wasn't here when you finalized the discussion of that part of the budget. Is it 3% of the total salary compensation within the department that you set aside for potential merit increases?
Correct. Okay. If we didn't already give them that because of the request. Now, I should note, the intent, at least my understanding was, the intent was not, even if we put it already in the budget, the intent was not that they automatically get that full amount. They automatically get the COLA on January 1. But their department head needs to, or elected official needs to go through and do the employee evaluation to get anything above and beyond that. A maximum of 5%. We did set aside 5% for every single one because we expect that most people should probably be in the 2 to 4% range, to be honest, so.
Now,
But that's what we've set aside.
Did we go and base that 3% off of their current wage or off of their 2024 COLA raise?
It's off the current raise.
Okay.
Current wage, yeah. So it would be a 3% based on your 2023 wage.
Okay.
In other words, your total compensation would go up a maximum, say, 8% in a lot of cases.
Okay.
Now, it should also be noted that those increases represent a greater cost than just that to the county, because if we increase wages by 8%, we've also got to increase benefits by that percent. So the overall cost of the county, I mean, we're talking about several $100,000 in wages and salary and benefit costs in order to do that. And, you know, we did a, 6% COLA last year.
Yeah.
We did increases the year before, so there's been some good wage increases, at least in my mind, over the last few years.
The one thing we did not discuss is hiring a new planner. What do you wanna do there?
We did not discuss that.
Did not discuss it.
Josh, was that, help refresh my memory, when you came into the discussion, to the budget discussions, did we talk about, I thought we talked about a new employee for your office for, inspections, was that correct?
That's correct.
Yes, that's correct. I had asked just for a building inspector plans reviewer. But I was approached by Commissioner Fackrell a couple times, and he mentioned that I should put in for another planner.
And the reason why I said that is because we're spending a lot on these different contractors doing these reviews, and they're not upon any kind of a deadline. So what I was suggesting is, what would it cost for an additional planner one, so that way maybe we could actually save some money by bringing it in-house and looking at it that way. So that was my reasoning for mentioning it to him. He went through the process, came up with a number as to what it would cost, and I think it's a reasonable cost if we can find one.
So we did add the new person for the inspector already, that's already in the
Yes,
budget.
that's already in there.
That's
This
correct.
is an
Discussion now
additional.
is an additional plan.
Yes.
And I think it's an interesting discussion at this point in time, because we've already passed the budget and going through everything, so it's kind of a,
Well,
caught
we
me a
did.
little off guard, because I didn't know about it.
That's right. And so what I was looking at is just the fact that, okay, we're spending so much in contract. You have an amount on that, Leslie, or Josh? We're spending over $100,000 a year.
Over
on-
100,000?
Over $100,000 a year in contract.
With who?
The
with
contract
civic
costs are
reviews.
from our surveyor, our engineer, and our the building permit company.
It'd be,
So a
yeah,
planner's
it'd
not
be the
gonna
design,
resolve that.
it'd be design, what's their name?
WC3?
No. There's a design group that we hired, I thought, to help us do plan reviews if we needed it. Design, something design or design something.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the consulting company that Jake
City
Young
Design.
runs?
Yes. That's
I-
what I'm talking about.
I don't know the name of his company.
So you don't
But
even
we
know,
haven't been
we
using
don't
them.
even know the name of them, let alone have an amount of money that we've spent on them. So we
Yeah,
haven't
I
spent
haven't,
any?
I haven't
Then-
used them.
Okay.
So that 100,000 doesn't even.
Well, look at your
If
cassette.
you hired a new
I
planner,
know, but
it'd
a
still be a hundred.
planner would not make that go away, is what I'm saying.
It'd still be 100.
No, it should go away.
Because Josh is just telling us that's for, tell us again who it's for.
The only consulting fees I know of that I've used are the Wasatch Civil for engineering, Intellis for surveyor, and WC3 for the building permit.
So it wouldn't
So the
say-
building permit should be mitigated slightly because of the new inspector. So that could
correct-
reduce
that's-
some.
It should be
But the
reduced.
engineering and the surveying would not be changed by hiring a new planner.
No,
Because we still need professional surveyors and engineers.
that's right.
Doesn't say the engineer's costing us over $100,000 a year in itself, just from his department. Then there's other departments, which is a whole lot more.
A
So
lot-
we're spending a whole lot more in just the,
But an entry-level planner can't
Can't
perform
do
the
that.
engineering
Right.
services.
Gotta have an engineer. I mean, I
Um,
guess that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
You could
That's a
hire a
new-
full-time
yeah.
engineer and not
Right.
do the contract.
and all I was doing is was suggesting it because I know we send out, at least you used to, I don't know if you still do or not. And that is you send out, if you got mind boggled or boggled with these plans that you could not review quick enough, that you would send them out to some, like you were saying, some logistics or somebody.
We
I
have
don't
done it
know.
in the past, so with respect to Wasatch Peaks, for example, there was a third-party consultant that was hired to evaluate their land use planning documents and so forth. But I don't know that since you've been on board and have a planner working with you, that we've had that need. So do you feel that there's a need to have another planner in order to meet the demands on the planning department in terms of current applications? That's, to me, the relevant inquiry.
Yeah.
I think between Jeremy and I, we're doing a pretty good job getting the projects through. I definitely would not say no to another planner. It would help. I don't know if it's needed right now, but I wouldn't say no to it.
Well, then don't do it right now. We'll do it next year. Or if there's a chance you need
Well,
it next year.
and
we
it could change, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you get 9 springs in and need a full evaluation, although I think you've been kind of keeping up to speed with them, but if there was another one to come in on top of that or something else like that, we could all of a sudden become overwhelmed in terms of our ability to respond to current applications. And if that's the case, then I think we need to look at hiring another planner.
Well, and I appreciate the fact, Commissioner Fackrell, of the thought process, and we've discussed it before, but the thought process of once you're spending so much on a third party, or in this case, let's say Wasatch Civil, if you're getting to the point where you're spending enough to be able to hire a person, then I agree that needs to be evaluated.
Right.
And maybe when we evaluate, we say it doesn't make sense. Maybe if we evaluate, we say it does make sense.
And that's fine. I was just giving the suggestion.
I am grateful for Commissioner Fackrell thinking of my department. Thank you.
I just know where the bottleneck is. There's 2 bottlenecks at least in our county. One of them is your department, and one is another department that we'll be discussing tonight.
I
And,
think both of those are my department.
well, they're associated with your department. So all I'm saying is we need to address it eventually, whether it be tonight or another time. So it doesn't have to be there. I was just suggesting it. And he at least went through and got the information for us. So now we know what we can look at for future.
So just a quick comment on the COLA and merit. Julie sent us commissioners a document from the state, and they got the COLA and merit increases for 29 cities in the state for this year. There's one that's higher, Sandy City, and it was a 13% total increase. And there's only there's one other one, 10.7% Springdale, and then Bountiful's at 10%. Everybody else of 29 cities are lower. So I think our recommendation is not at the average. It's actually, in my opinion, a little bit above average.
So no changes then.
Mike, before you answer that question, can I ask a couple of questions? Because I have to answer to the people that are requesting these things, and so if I could just ask briefly one thing about each one. Do I get that opportunity? Or is it just a flat no?
No, I don't know what you think, Chair, but I guess the thought I have is we go through a budget session to evaluate each employee, and the department head or the elected official comes in and gives us their evaluation of each employee at that time. And then we have the discussions and we go back and forth and we say, okay, this is what we agreed to with each employee. It doesn't sound like we're stopping there.
Well,
We're
only because of some
continuing.
confusion and some things that people go around saying in the building that then make more confusion. So the only reason I brought this to your attention is because these are the people that feel like they didn't get the things that they requested that they need. And there's a couple of them that are particularly important to know for sure, again, if you actually made the decision that you're set on, or if you would consider anything else. Like,
So-
even if you consider nothing else in the sheriff's department, animal control is something I'd like to just point out.
So my recommendation might be, because I hate to say names or
Right.
have people, as soon as we say a position, they can probably associate it to a name pretty quickly. Maybe my preference, I don't know what you commissioners think, but whatever the discrepancies are between what we budgeted and went through the budget session and what is now changed, that be, of course, is that what we're seeing in this packet? Is this all, are these all changes from our budget
These would be adjustments to what you already have
to
agreed on.
the budget?
For 2024, if there's any of them that you would consider. If
Well-
not, we could bring these back to you later with the 3% that you put aside. Maybe I jumped the gun with trying to help people. Maybe I should have waited till after that.
The crazy thing is they presented it. Of course they didn't get everything.
That's
We don't
right.
always give
But some didn't even ask. That's why.
But we
That's
set
what we
aside
put
the
aside.
extra 3% because they
So
didn't.
that's why I'm asking, did I jump the gun on this?
Yes.
So it'd be there. I see two here. One would be some didn't get all they asked for, and we were gonna have to say sorry there. But then the other ones who didn't realize they could, and we set aside the monies for it, we look at those separately.
Okay,
What,
later.
what I think we need to do is, like Matt was saying, that review process. They need to complete that process,
And all of
and then that way we can adjust it with that money that we set aside for those adjustments. And,
As far as I'm concerned, that's for only the people that didn't know, didn't ask.
that's right. And
Ones that asked for everything and
then
didn't
they,
get it,
yeah,
that's done.
That's done.
that's
Okay.
done.
That's what I need to know.
And that's,
At least that's how I feel.
and the merit increase needs to be, if they're gonna do it, they need to do it.
They are.
I mean, I've done one, and, but I think we need to complete it.
Then you get fired.
I know,
Did you do a merit interview on yourself?
not on myself, not on myself, cause I'm gonna request that we drop ours,
So,
and so's Matt.
I was just confused about one of the things you put in here, Julie. So
Okay,
the animal control officer says $3,000.
that's an additional.
And, okay, but then it says $20 per hour, and then down below it says we're requesting $66,679.60.
Yeah.
That's the sheriff's request. I talked to both of them before they left town and said, did you overlook the fact that you wanted to try to get animal control up to 20? And they said, yes, they kind of just put that aside and didn't think about it. So I just figured out what it would be. It would be an additional 3,000 to what they've requested, or just the 3,000 if you wanted to get that up to a little bit higher wage for a living wage for that person.
Who on that upper end is willing to give up some of their money to fill in for that?
They have already given up 40,000 from one budget, so they feel like they
Well,
already have.
That's fine.
think they brought that up,
Maybe
didn't
we
they?
ought to look at the whole budget and decrease it all.
So,
I mean,
okay, I don't
Wait
think
a
we
minute.
need
I
to
want
go
to be clear
there.
about something.
Yeah.
We cannot say a department is willing to give up 40,000 from their budget. They weren't
That's-
willing to give up 40,000. The reason that they're able to do that is because we agreed to sell a vehicle that will allow them to reduce it by that amount.
that's right.
it's not that they're giving it up. This isn't their money to give up. This is county money, part of the general fund. So
Not my
regardless of whether there's funds there or not, I still feel strongly that you can't just give pay increases one after another to give pay increases. And you can't give substantial 15 and 20% pay increases year after year after year. And if we start doing that, we'll very quickly run out of room to do that.
That's not what
So,
they're trying to do.
in my opinion, a 5% increase is actually very generous. A 10% increase is even more generous, and an 8% increase is great too. That's significantly more than I would get in the private industry this year,
And 26 of the 29 cities that we got in
and
the report.
26 of the 29 cities. So the message needs to be very clear to our employees, from our department heads and elected officials down. Hey, the commission is really trying hard to get you some big increases here, because 10% is a huge pay increase. It's big. It really is. So that needs to be the message, not, sorry you didn't get everything you want. It should be, hey, look what you did get. I had a conversation with one of our officers the other night, happened to be at an event, he was there, and I mentioned to him, hey, you're gonna get a pay raise. He didn't know that. He was thrilled when I said we were doing a 5% COLA. So I hope that that's the message that we're conveying is, hey, this is a good thing, not, oh, unfortunately you didn't get a 20% raise. You only got 10 or you only got 5.
I hope that's not directed my way, because that's not what I do. I
It's
need to say that.
directed to everybody.
Thank you.
Because everybody needs to make sure that that's the message that they're giving to their.
Needs to be an attitude of gratitude.
And it sounds like we'll have a good meeting Monday about it.
I think so. It'll be a
And
good
we're
discussion.
also in that meeting going over how to do the paperwork that they're doing for it.
That's wonderful.
One thing also, I mean, yes, we did give a 5%. In reality, even Social Security did not get that this year. Last year they did get it, just like we did, but this year they're not getting that much. So they ought to, as far as a COLA, that's pretty good COLA.
So I will take this budget, I will have it prepared, ready for public inspection the week of Thanksgiving. We will be having a public hearing, your first meeting in December at 6 o'clock for budget adoption, so.
So, there was one other item, and that was on the administrator budget.
Oh, yes.
I think we should put that additional amount in there because we did advertise for that range. That doesn't mean we're gonna actually spend that, but that's what we advertised. So
put
I
that
think
in
we
the
should put
budget.
that
I will
in
put
and
that.
probably adjust the benefits section accordingly as well.
So is there still a budget hearing tonight?
No, this wasn't a budget hearing.
There
this
is
was
one
just work
at 6,
session.
but that's for amendments to the 2023 budget.
2023.
Okay, oh, all right.
We're
Okay,
talking 2 different
2020. I
years.
see it there.
The other item that we probably ought to address, Leslie, is that there is a surplus currently.
Yes.
um,
That single page that I gave you tonight is.
Is what it
will
is
tell you,
currently.
yes.
It'd be adjusted slightly from what we've talked
So,
about.
once I do the administrator,
But
that
there's
will-
still a surplus there.
Correct.
There's a couple of ways we could handle that surplus. We could choose to budget it to some other line item. We have to budget it somewhere. We can't
Right.
just show a surplus at the end. So it could go into non-departmental
Non-departmental.
if we wanted. And we could use that for other items that may come up through the year. That might include wage increases, that could include new employees, it could include a number of things. It could include work on this building that we know we're gonna have to do, cause we're hiring new people and we need a place to put them.
Do remember that we did set aside 50,000 for wage increases.
So we could
do
put more in
remember
that,
We
but,
could.
I mean, that's just a thought I'm throwing out there. Or the other option is we could decrease our revenue line item, and reduce taxes. So those are options. I'm not,
One more thing. The sheriff, that's one of the things he wants to talk to us about, is he has been doing some negotiating for the jails. That's gonna double what we had set aside. So, that's something we're gonna have
let's
to look
put
at.
that into,
Meeting with him, when will we know that?
The 20th. 20th of November.
just put, if, are we sure it's doubling?
Yes, about $160,000.
Then put that in right now. Well, that cuts that surplus way down.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
My suggestion then would be to put the rest into non-departmental.
Okay.
But commissioners, do you have any thoughts? Any other?
And on behalf of the employees, department heads, and elected officials, we are very appreciative for what you've done for us.
Thank you.
And I think
Appreciate
it'll
it.
be good to talk about it.
I do too. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You won't have me there.
Any other discussion on, what's that?
Saying you won't have me there next week.
Short
Yeah, it
meeting?
might be a short meeting, unless I zoom in.
There's no
Okay,
call-in option
Will
to that
Teams
one.
in?
Did you not get one of these?
I might be on the road, but you know.
Okay, that brings us right to the end of our work session. Good timing. Let's, take a 4-minute break here and then we'll begin our meeting at the top of the hour.
Nope, first time.
You say break?
Yeah.
Ready, break.
I totally get that things are gonna be
Commissioner Anderson? All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Morgan County Commission meeting. Today is November 7th, 2023. We just completed a work session and we're beginning our regular meeting. All members of the commission are present. I've asked Commissioner Wilson to offer an invocation and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, we bow our heads this evening and thank thee for the opportunity we have to be here together as a community, and we ask that thy blessings be upon us. We're thankful, Father, for our freedoms and the blessings that we enjoy here in this valley, for our constituents and the good people that we have here and the way that they help one another. We pray that that can continue. We ask you to bless those who are suffering at this time throughout the world, who are innocent, and we ask that thy blessings be upon this nation and our little valley. We pray, Heavenly Father, that we can have a good evening this night and get the things done that we need to, that we can do so with integrity, and we appreciate all that thou does for us in our lives and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Wilson. We will move to item B, which is our consent items. We have one item this evening. That's the review and approval of the October 17th, 2023 meeting minutes. Any questions on the minutes or items that need to be addressed that have not already gone to Julie? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the October 17th, 2023 meeting minutes.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Declarations of conflict of interest for commissioners on any of tonight's agenda items.
For me, Chair, on item number 8, I do have a conflict of interest with Vanderlane Surveying. I will present the agreement, but will abstain from voting.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to our public comment period. We do have one public hearing that will take place at 6 p.m., so we'll go through our agenda item until that 6 o'clock hour comes around, and then we'll move to that public hearing. That is an amendment of our 2023 budget. So if you have anything to say regarding that, you can do that during that public hearing. Otherwise, I'm sorry, we also have 2 public hearings. Will be towards the end of our meeting on land use items. That is the Smith-Hammond rezone and the dry utilities text amendment. Any other items that you'd like to address, or any other items to discuss with the commission? Now is your time.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, commissioners. My name's Jeff Matthews. I'm here. I'll keep this very brief. I just have one quick question. I realize this had been worked on through the planning department. I was curious about the ADU ordinance, where that might be. If that's something you can address tonight, I realize it's not on the agenda, so I just wanted to ask.
Okay, thank you. Accessory dwelling unit? Yeah. Any other items? Okay. With that, we do not have any presentations this evening, so we will move to action items. Under section F, action item 1, Mr. Heiner, Public Works Department. This is discussion decision on the purchase or lease of a loader for the airport.
Thanks, Commissioners. We talked about for last year or so to add a loader in Public Works for use down to the airport and other uses in the county. Probably at that need now, I think, especially for snow removal. And if you look in the back of what I've sent you, we have a snow pusher to go along with that from Holland Equipment. We can talk about that at the same time. We did work pretty hard at trying to find loaders that are available, ones that fit what we need. The top of our list is the John Deere loader that I put to the front there, kind of put them in order there. Really a great deal, I think, for what we found. All of them are on state contract, which is always a good deal for the county if we can buy them just like the state can buy them. So that is our pick to get is that John Deere 2022 loader. Same size as the case that we have now. Same horsepower, same reach, same size bucket. It's got 320 hours on it, which is virtually brand new. It is used, 1 year old, but it's virtually brand new. So that's our findings on that. Yeah, the pusher is 16 foot wide. That's how you clear big parking lots or runways or big areas like you got down to the. Well, the bucket just comes with it. I'm just saying it's comparable with what we got. A same size loader is what we need or we have. All the loaders are pretty comparable with what I've brought you here. So.
It was itemized in the initial cost, but that's not, it's a used loader, so it comes with everything that you see, including
The only
the bucket.
add-on is the Holland snow pushing bucket. If you've seen them, well, if you go down the freeway in the wintertime, like in Target's parking lot or over Walmart, you can see this kind of equipment that they use to push parking lots. Your airport's getting big enough that it really needs something better than one of our plow trucks. That's really the proper piece of equipment to move that big of area. A little different than plowing the street.
That did include a warranty, a 5-year, 3,000-hour warranty as well.
Yes.
So going back to Matt's question, is this price, the $145,000, included, is the snow box included in that or not?
No, the snow box is extra. If you go through, it says Holland Equipment, 4 pages in there. And
That was
box
my
separate.
understanding.
that is a separate purchase, but it'll be needed for what we need to do.
So is this has been budgeted, correct?
Well, me and Commissioner
No.
McConnell are gonna put it into our Public Works. Costs us about $25,000 a year if we lease it, just like we have our plow trucks. So that's on a 7-year lease, which you'd end up paying about $175,000 for the loader in 7 years. So you'd have about
That's the question.
$25,000 in interest on it. The other option, and Mike kind of come up with this, is to just purchase it outright, which I think if it's possible, that's probably.
So you might recall when we were talking in the budget discussions, we talked about adding, part of one of Brett's requests was to add $25,000 or $30,000 to his fleet budget for a lease on this. And I had suggested at the time that we look for a used piece of equipment we could buy outright from the fund balance rather than taking on another lease and paying interest on it. I was hoping we could find something in like the $80,000 range, but equipment's gone up pretty significantly since.
Well, that and the problem
bought it.
and if you look on there on that Komatsu, that was the best thing we could find in that brand. It's $115,000. It's got 6,800 hours on, I think, on it. It's just 6,800 hours. To give you an idea, the loader we have now, we bought it with 2,000 hours on it, and it has about 3,200 hours on it now. So in 2 years, we put about 1,200 hours on it. And the loader that we lost in the fire was a John Deere in 1996. It had 12,000 hours on it, to give you an idea. And it was plenty used, but it still ran.
So you could combine it.
These
Yeah,
are all
it has
used.
300 hours on
Yeah,
it.
these are all
The
used.
Sammy that I saw, that one was brand new, I thought.
Yeah, I don't have that one in there. They don't have one available. Plus, the horsepower does not match the John Deere or the
Tell
or the
me,
Cat. That's
So,
the 211.
The John Deere one is fairly new. It's what, a 2021,
22,
22?
360 hours on it, did you say?
320.
320. You could combine the proposal, though. I mean, this is a lease rate to finance with the lease the entire purchase price.
Yes.
We could take 80 grand out of the fund balance and
Finance the
reduce
rest.
that, reduce the overall payment, and then you could,
Have a
you
2 or
could
3 year
prepay
deal.
if you want to as well. Well,
You
we would need to make sure that was allowed under the lease.
Yeah, there's no penalty there.
my question,
Plow trucks, if we was to pay off our plow trucks, you could do that early, same thing.
I have a question on it. Okay, we're gonna buy one down there for the airport. What's the other reasons for buying it?
You mean besides using the airport, I can use it down in that area of the county. So now if I have a problem down the Mountain Green, I road our loader from our shop down there, so that'll be it'll help us out. If we need one down there, we won't road it as far, they'll just go down in their work truck, get in.
Do we have do we have somewhere to keep this?
Just
Under
at the airport, we need to talk about that in the future, about making this, an equipment shed down there or something. We don't have one now, we'll just have to,
So so it wouldn't be under cover or anything, just open to the
not until we
elements?
build something. It's possible to do that, I just haven't gone that far.
I'm just wondering, is there any other alternative that would help us to do the same thing we're trying to do with snow removal, whether it be in the airport on the runway, or if it's, in the cul-de-sacs in Mountain Green? Is there any other method other than spending $145,000 or $160,000, $155,000?
Best method to clear something like the airport, we can't use it on the road, we can't use this box on the road.
Can't use this machine on the road?
We can use it to push snow, let's say up in, like last year, we took our loader down quite a bit in the end of cul-de-sacs and moved snow in different spots. We use the loader for that, not the pusher.
Is
Just for
there-
parking lots and big areas to push.
Is there any way that we can get a piece of equipment that has like a snow blower that's 16 feet wide that can attach to a piece of equipment that may be able to be used for versatile things versus just,
Well, you could, again, if you had a big snowblower, the only thing you'd use it for is at the airport. And they have them, it'd be quite expensive. They do have them that you can adapt to a loader. I haven't checked that out, I don't think that fits good for us yet. And on a road, no, I can't use a loader. I can't be pulling snow in people's yards.
So how would you clear the airport if we said no to this now?
Just keep doing what we're doing with a little plow and do it when we can do it. It's just trying to get more efficient and your airport's grown quite a bit. You've got a lot more, you've got more taxiways and there's just more snow to push. It's gonna be a bigger problem. As you keep growing. This is a growing problem because you've added to the airport.
I'm just wondering what other needs we have for it other than wintertime snowplow.
I'll use it in the summer. I'll use it down there. I have a lot of projects with a loader down everywhere. The loader is a piece of equipment we use daily. But the loader, in the wintertime, the loader at the road shop cannot leave the road shop unless we go down just for a couple of hours or whatever. It has to be there all the time to load trucks. Can't have a loader in both places.
I mean, for that matter, you could have a salt storage place down at that end of the county and use
That's
the
another-
loader to do that.
This would
Yeah.
kind of push us into being where we could have a place to, an equipment shed down there and a salt shed, maybe a smaller version of what we have. And I have stored some salt down there. I did it last year a little bit. It's tough to keep it from hardening up. But when we got real busy, I'd have 100-ton delivered and it helped Justin out especially. We loaded it tried to load it with tobacco, but it was a struggle. It doesn't go high enough to load in trucks.
So you said it didn't have the same horsepower, wasn't available, quote says available in a week,
Well,
and it has 181 horsepower and your John Deere has 152.
well, drive one and you'll know. Use one. I know you like the Sandy, but we don't. It's just been the Sandy excavator that we bought is weak compared to one of those other ones. I mean, I've run it myself, and I mean, it works, and it's a good piece of equipment because it's a lot better than what we had before we got it. But John Deere is going to be a lot better piece of equipment.
Do we have the Sani quote somewhere? Do we have,
We have an
Well,
excavator.
It never made it to the quote
what's the price? What's the price on it?
for the new one. It's $140.
I just got what's available right now.
I just want you to be honest and as far as don't say it's less horsepower and it's
Well-
not available. Just say we don't like it.
Well, I don't.
Okay,
I don't,
that's fine, but I'm
but
just
it's,
saying, just be honest about it.
the one you're talking about, they sold. That's why it's not in the deal. It's not there. They sold.
That's what he told me to do.
He can get another one sometime this winter. But as far as when snow season comes December 1st, we wouldn't have it.
I just think it's a major expense, I don't know. There's so many.
It is a
need-
major expense item, but I have to say, it's surprising me that a county of this size only has one loader. I mean, frankly, you've got miles and miles of road and various projects, and
So how do you keep it
Yeah.
good? If you sit it out in the,
How does,
so now
yeah.
spend another $100,000, put up a building?
over time, we probably will need to do stuff like that.
So why wouldn't you put up the building and then put the thing in it?
I guess we could look at that if you want to reverse the order of things, but we also might be able to find a location to store it if there might be somebody with available hangar space.
That's true.
Yeah, we did think of that a little bit, and then we could figure out
Leave some
something
space in the
temporary to
hangar
put,
temporarily.
to cover it, keep the snow off it, but it's not gonna kill it either. It'll be out in the weather. I mean, most of your construction equipment are out most of the time. It's nice to keep them in. Definitely better on.
Especially when you need to start them.
Yeah, we would plug it in. Yeah, we definitely plug it in.
And like I said, I'm open to just the 25,000 a year, or if we want to take some portion from the fund balance to reduce that amount, or pay it all.
Is the lease a $1 buyout?
That's what it says on the,
And is it anything for paying it off early?
Brett
Penalties.
said there was no prepayment penalty. I haven't looked at the language.
It's the same as our plow trucks.
So in other words, we can pay it off next year if we have an influx of money.
Yeah.
So what other equipment do we need down there?
Well, down there, I mean, it'd be nice to get its own plow truck, a bigger 10-wheeler right now. I take my spare bobtail, that we do have a lot of trouble with once in a while, and we do keep that down there, but we have to go rob it and get it.
So why don't we,
add that one day down there,
so why don't we just do that instead of a loader?
because it's not enough to plow what we need to plow. You've got to move the snow too far. There's too much volume of snow to take a little plow truck and keep rolling it clear to where we got to take it.
Okay.
It's not efficient. It's just hard on the truck.
Okay.
Well, you really need both. You need both. You need that to do the runway or most of the runway. Once it gets too far, if you got, like we had a lot of days there, a lot of snow, we had to take the grader down there and tell the turbo went out in the grader to help us push it. Depends on the year. You really need both down there.
So do you think we will have this 20 years from now still?
I bet, yeah. And well, we've got a Cat grader, 1978.
Yeah, but
I
we're having
actually
trouble
hope we
with
don't.
that.
I hope that we get better at rotating our equipment and we don't keep stuff for 20 years. That's my.
We have a 1980.
It's not
Traco,
efficient. It's
90 John Deere Traco. That's a 1980. Actually, a pretty good piece of equipment. The grader, I fixed it up a bunch, and it's a pretty good piece of equipment right now. We put about 20,000 in it to keep it going. So we have some older equipment, you bet. But I don't. It's like Mike says. I think you're crazy to keep them that long. I think you're better to rotate them.
I mean, we learned that with a 20-year-old plow truck that burned our shed
Better
down.
show it down there.
Yeah, well, I just wonder.
Can it last that long? Yeah. But should it? I don't know.
I just worry about, are we purchasing something for a long time? Is it gonna stay around? Is it gonna be worthwhile? Are we gonna use it that much? You know, are we just spending money to spend money? And that's my question, is are we gonna really utilize it enough to where it's needed?
I wouldn't be standing here if I didn't need it, Wayne.
Well, I know, but
You know what I mean? That's a question. If I didn't need it, I wouldn't be standing here asking for it.
So, overall cost, we're talking close to 150,000, really regardless of which piece of equipment.
Yeah. They're all close to the same price.
So, I think if we agree to move forward with that, I think we just need to decide which option, and that is, do we take all of that out of the fund balance currently and just pay for it and avoid interest? Or do we put down a nice down payment and then finance the rest over a few years?
Yeah, we could do it either way. I mean, you're gonna pay about, like I said at first, you're gonna pay about $25,000 in interest over 7 years.
But, you know, let's say we put $50,000 down and you're only financing $100,000, well, then maybe we do it over 5 years instead of 7.
Yeah, that'd cut it
And
down
maybe
to
your payment's
15 to
closer to
18,000.
20,000 instead of 25, you know, that
Right.
saves us some money. And if there's no prepayment penalty in a year or two, if we decide, hey, we owe still 70,000, let's just pay it off, that's an option we could
So
do.
when we had that fire, we had one new Mack plow truck, and we owed $112,000, I think, on it. We paid it off. We had it for 2 years, and we had the fire, and we paid it off. Same kind of thing. We paid it off with insurance.
So if you like that idea, I think that's what we ought to do. Let's do a decent down payment, $50,000-$60,000 is the down payment. We could pull that from the fund balance now. We'll need to make a budget adjustment to add 20 or 22,000 to the
then that
budget, and let's try to finance it on a little shorter term.
Did we not already include that?
We didn't already include that, because we talked about just buying it outright. But we were
That-
hoping it'd be 60 or 80,000, not 150.
It'd be great to get another deal like we did on the case, but that was obviously a one-time deal.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we authorize the long-term lease of the John Deere, the total purchase price of $145,792 with a down payment of $50,000, financed pursuant to a 7-year lease with a $1 buyout, and also authorize the purchase now of the snow box for $9,063.21, with the cash components to come from the fund balance.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Leslie, did you catch that to add to the? Okay.
Just
If
to-
we can, did you say 7 years? I don't know if you did. If we can get it shorter, let's shorten it.
Yeah, you can get
And
it
keep it
shorter.
around 20, 25,000.
Particularly, I guess, if it affects the rate.
Yeah, that's true. I guess if the rate isn't higher, we can,
Yeah, you can go 5 years, maybe what you're talking about, 5 years instead of 7.
yeah.
Still be around 20,000, just guessing, maybe, give or take that.
Okay.
And the other thing is this loader's being held, all 3 of these, or all 4 of these are being held for us right now in good faith. We've got to buy it. We gotta get it done to keep it. This John Deere is a real hot item, just because of the low price.
Oh, hours.
There's a lot of cities and counties that like to buy it, so it's they're looking out for us and call us when you come in.
Okay.
Wasn't sitting there, just come in.
So are you going to go get the finance paperwork on that? Get it going?
Yeah, I got it on the contract, same thing, Bancorp.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Thank you, Brett.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, action item number 2 is Garrett Smith. He's out this evening. But this is an
I'm
ordinance.
here virtually, though.
Oh, you are on. I'm sorry, Garrett.
Yeah.
Didn't realize you were online. Do you want to
No
introduce this one
problem.
then?
Yeah. so this has been a work in progress for a couple years. The Sterling codifiers used to update our code about every decade. They were purchased by American Legal Publishing. And so this process is, well, I guess I wasn't here for prior processes, but this one seemed to take a little bit longer. And anyway, we're trying to figure it all out. But we do have an updated code. It has been already updated online, even though we haven't officially adopted this. So we're hoping that this goes well tonight. The major change is when they sent in the questionnaire to the person who received it at the time, they checked a box that said they didn't mind having new numbers being coded. And so when we got the first draft back, it was a little surprising because it's titled differently than our prior code. And they said it was going to be quite a bit to redo it or to go back from what they had done. And so Josh and I met and discussed it, and we talked with Commissioner McConnell and decided, okay, well, let's just at least get it done, move forward. So it will be a little difficult getting used to it at the beginning, but there is a reference sheet within the code that says, all right, prior code 8-12-46 is now, you know, whatever the new code is. So there will be some ability to cross-reference it there. Other than that, in the adopting ordinance, I tried to include the ordinances that have been adopted since the final draft was sent in, just so that those can be incorporated and not superseded by this new ordinance being adopted tonight. And I think that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
I have a question, Garrett. How is this updating of this portion going to affect SB 174?
I don't think it will. SB 174 is just something that we'll have to do in addition to this. So basically what this is doing is it went through all the state codes, some of the federal codes that are referenced in our code as well, fire code, building code, things of that nature. And they incorporated all the updated references into our code. And they updated it, so every time it said council, now it says commission, things of that nature.
So with respect to the land use elements of this code, there aren't any, I don't want to say that the change from council to commission was not substantive, but there aren't otherwise substantive changes in the land use ordinance itself.
That's correct, unless it's updating a code reference in the state code.
Okay.
If the state changed, you know, a code or a provision or, you know, where conditional uses were cited, which I don't think they did. But for example, it would just bring it into line with the current state code as well.
So maybe characterize them as technical updates and clarifications. The only reason I'm wondering is if we needed to have a planning commission recommendation with respect to the land use ordinance. But if it's substantively, these are just technical modifications to update code references to the code and so forth, then I think I view that differently.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. Any substantive changes were based on ordinances that we sent to them that had gone through the planning commission recommendations.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
And they do align with all the state codes, right, Garrett?
Right.
Okay.
Well, that's what they told us. I'll be honest, I haven't reviewed every single state code that it references, but I have spent a lot of time checking, and everything that I checked looked good.
So Garrett, it says in there, except for the codes that we've passed this year, or county ordinances that we've passed this year. So if they've done this, why didn't they just include those also?
So there was a final, we sent a final, draft or edits that we had. And so it's not this entire year, it's just, I can't remember where it starts, but whatever the county ordinance was, maybe in July, August, whenever that was the latest that they sent in to incorporate. These new ones that we've passed, they will incorporate into the online, but they had to print our code and send it out to us, if that makes sense. So they sent us 3 books that we've now, we have hard copies. Josh has 2 in his office. I have 1 in mine.
Okay.
More discussion? For motion? Excuse me, I'll look for a motion on the item.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve Morgan County Ordinance Number CO-23-18, an ordinance enacting the Code of Ordinances for Morgan County, Utah, revising, amending, restating, codifying, and compiling certain existing general ordinances of Morgan County dealing with subjects embraced in such Code of Ordinances.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. All right, moving to item number 3. Julie, this is review and approval of the Morgan County harassment policy updates.
The changes that we suggested to be made to, just so you see.
Any questions or comments on the current version? Or the proposed version, I should say.
I
I
did
don't,
just have
but
a
in the
couple minor ones.
Go ahead, Garrett.
So on the packet, page 204, let's see, where it says who files a charge of harassment, I would just change that to report. Charge makes it sound criminal, and there may be times where someone can report to the sheriff's office. But I think if it's going just through the county, we can have it be a report instead of a charge. And that's the second to last paragraph before the bolded information. So page 1 of 2. Then the other suggestion is on page 205. And it in number 5, reporting procedure, it lists department head, elected official, and so on. And I would just add 4 before consideration at the end of that sentence. And then do the same on page 206 in number 5.
You would add what, where?
For consideration.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just where it says or county commission member, I would just add for consideration there.
I see.
And then under 7, I would just I would put those as letters, not numbers, just so it doesn't become confusing if we're referencing it.
Yeah, I like all of those suggestions. Commissioner McConnell, did you have a comment?
No, that's got it covered.
Okay. With that, we'll look for a motion then on item number 3.
I'll make a motion that we approve the updated harassment policy in Morgan County as provided and with the changes made by our attorney.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, item number 4, Julie.
After seeing what the sheriff had recommended for their department, I realized that they were asking for us to do something special for them, and that would mess up the equality thing that Garrett had told me that we need to try to achieve. And so what, I actually worked with Josh, and he gave me some good recommendations on if we were to lengthen the grades so that there's more grades. That's the number one thing that we wanna do. That would give more ability for each department to be able to promote their person into a new position or, like a planner one to planner two, and separate all of the jobs better by how much their starting pay is. So that's one of the things, but with this one in particular, I've shortened it to fit the sheriff's department. So what I'd like to see, if, unless you wanna wait to see the other one also, we would like to adopt this one in particular, just for the sheriff's department this time. And then I'll bring another one that will be used by everyone else, which does not change this at all, but just adds number one, and the ones that are missing from there will be added. And then, we'll have a county one and a sheriff's one, but they're still the same, they're just, one is shortened for the sheriff's department because their needs are different. And then all of their people will be graded based on that, and it changes the starting pay to where we can actually place people in the starting pay that fits more for that. Just gives us a broader spectrum to be able to put everyone in the different slots that they should be in for the start pay. So this one, like I said, if you approve it tonight to start for 2024, this would only be for hiring purposes and correcting. And then I have, that's it, I'm bringing to you the next meeting that I think you'll like, because it's a simplified version of this. This is only for hiring and correcting pay.
What do you mean by correcting?
Correcting, like if somebody's pay range is too low and they need to get on the chart corrected toward their, like, the sheriff's department will use this by the year. You see, it's shortened 15 years too. They will use it that way. The rest of us won't use it that way because we want to go based off the merit. They will do merit plus years because that's how the sheriff's department works. So their sheriffs will max out at 15 years, and then from 15 to 20, they will only get quota bases. And they will only get 2.5 for their merit. We did it again. Sorry, guys. So 2.5 for their annual merit raise, and then whatever the COLA would be. And of course, they have to earn that merit raise, and they do their own merit program. They won't use ours in particular, but it's similar to ours. It's so similar that they just want to keep going with what they're familiar with. So, and then the county one would also be just a 15-year max out. And so the only way they could go higher than that pay range is if they move a grade based on new knowledge, new certifications, new degrees or whatever would move them down the scale. So what we'd like to do is call it a grade on the left and range across the top, even though the sheriff's department would use this as their yearly step up. They would use it as steps. They still would. But the rest of us would use it as ranges. And so they can, go a few steps merit-wise instead of just 2.5 like the sheriffs will do. Does that make sense?
So I got a question for you, Julie. Let's say this year we decided to do a 3% COLA and no merit.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to this chart because all the steps are at 2.5%? How does that?
The sheriff's department would utilize that by saying you're getting your 2.5 and you're getting a half of a COLA.
So they don't have to have an exact amount of what this pay grade says you can be in the middle at any given time.
If they would be in the middle if they had 7 years of experience. They're going to use it different, and that's why I thought it'd be best to give them their own chart, but not have it different than ours. Just have it more focused, and then let them go with what they do.
Then
Because
what if there was a 0% COLA?
then they wouldn't get any steps. If they're not allowed to ask for merit-based 2.5, then if there's no COLA, they would not move steps at all. And they would need to know that, and if you approve this, I'll write a policy that goes with it and how it can be used, and then get that approved by you also, so that you
So-
can alter that.
Technically, they could be making a wage in between, range 6 and 7. They could be. It
Yeah.
wouldn't be a set
Right.
amount.
So explain to me again why we're going from 26 grades to 45 grades.
Josh, would you like to chime in right here? You say it better than me.
And before you answer that, because that's a loaded question, it should be noted that these pay grades, the grades and the initial wages, that was all done through a study by a
Yes.
third party. That
Yes.
wasn't Morgan County doing it. It was a third party that we hired, spent a lot of money to go through, determine what the pay grade or the band, excuse me, should be for every profession, every career within the county, and to set them within that band.
Yes.
I like having, even 26 might be too many. I'm not real thrilled about adding more and more and more. I think you complicate the situation. I'm also curious, where did you get these starting wages from?
If you'll share that, and then I can share that next part.
Go ahead.
Oh, just
The
why-
reason for moving from, actually, we didn't even have 26 bands because we started at band 7.
We had about 19, I think.
So we had like 19, now we're talking about starting at 9 and going to 45, I don't know.
46.
Yeah, so if we just talk about my department currently has an office manager. In the future, there may be an administrative assistant, which would be grades lower. There is planner 1 currently, but in the future, I'm sure Jeremy is gonna wanna move up in his career to a planner 2, a senior planner, and prepare for taking over my position at some point in the future. All of those require different grades, and in order to fit all of those grades for those potential positions, you need quite a few different grades in order to adjust it. Otherwise, you get clumping, and so it doesn't really address the different wage gaps between the different positions really well. So in the place where I worked, that I think we had 50 grades. Every position was separated by 2 or 3 grades. So planner 1 to a planner 2 would jump 3 grades because the salary range was that different. Same with building official. It's hard with the current 19 grades where to put the building official in relation to the planner 1 or the planner 2, things like that. So my recommendation was that we increase the number of grades to make it a little bit easier to fit in the positions that we may need in the future.
Can I make a comment?
I'm not
Chair?
opposed to, yes, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I guess the thought, and maybe you've got a similar thought, we can have 200 grades, or 300, I don't care how many
We wouldn't
grades
need
or
that
how
many.
many steps or anything that we have. As far as, I do like the thought process of saying, if we have a planner 1 position, for example, that Josh brought up, this is what they typically start at, and this is what they'll top out at. Whatever if the ranges are 30, okay, the ranges aren't gonna matter. What's gonna matter is commissioners and the future commissioners are gonna say, here's the COLA and here's the merit. So that's really what's gonna be able to drive, and I guess the merit can move a little bit, of course, but I guess the thought I have is there's multiple planning 1 positions in the state. There's multiple public works director position in the state, and we evaluate that per position. You can call it grade 162 and range 247. Whatever you want to do, but here's the starting, here's where they would end, and that's what we have for that position. But yeah, this is kind of, it's a chart. I don't know where everybody would fit in or how it would look with the current positions in the sheriff's department. I don't know, but I do like the thought process of saying there's a limit that a person in a position can make. I like that. But
I do like the 15 years instead of going the 20 that the other one was, but I've been studying this exact thing in my college class for my degree, and it's been interesting to get to study it now that I've been working with it for 2 years. And I see now what Sarah did when she helped to create this with the study was just that we had few positions then. And the positions were in such a way that 19 fit that. We have more positions now, we have different titles now, we have different job descriptions for some. And we need it a little bit broader so that you don't have the same person who's a 20 like an HR person who's a 20 isn't going to be the same as these other three positions. So, but if you have a 19, 18, and a 17, then they can be right below that HR grade, but not equal to it. So having separation in starting wage, fitting the going wage at this time, which I can use even off the labor statistics website if you want me to do it that way for Utah, just helps it so that we can literally fit all of our positions in there and not have a legal assistant the same grade as custodian. And that's what happened with Sarah's version that she did, because there was only 19. And so you get discrepancies like that, and then it's helping us now that we do have more positions to be able to spread it out. Whatever wage you think is the highest wage you would ever hire somebody for, that's why I stopped at 45, because I didn't think you would ever hire anybody for more than that. And it could be less than that. You can shorten this if you want. I was just trying to give the concept of, after Josh and I kind of talking it through and me thinking about how they did it, where he came from. I think it's needed now that there are more positions, and it gives the departments an opportunity to move people grades instead of just trying to always move them across to the right. And then we'll get away from them thinking that every year they're going to get that increase of wage. They're not. It's a different process. And like I said, when I do the one that would be for the county, then I would do a policy with that one, get it approved by you guys so that you know exactly how they're being used, and we don't have the confusion that we had before with it.
So before you change the scale, you need to assign every position to a
Exactly.
grade.
Right.
How is that going to take place?
Okay, so broadening it this way, I just randomly put the wage in there so that we could fit everybody. So for instance, the sheriff's department, they have grade 16, 17, 18, and then they have a 19, and they have a 24, 25 kind of thing. So what we would do for them is they would shift a little. I would have to regrade them to fit. So the chart that we have right now, if their 17 started at 21, 25, I just need to go to this chart, find the grade that wage is there, and then just regrade them. Then they're on the same path. They're on that same 2.5. There's no
What
change
happens
that
if
way.
somebody comes to us and says, Julie assigned the wrong grade to me, I should 12, not a grade 10?
Well, I can, according to our policy, myself and the head of the department or elected official just makes that change. It's nothing, it just means they're gonna be on a different trajectory for their career. But it's something that I need to get done and do it right the first time, and there was mistakes made on the previous one that I've been correcting. When I first got here, we kind of corrected some, but there's not been a lot of that, just a few that were not aligned correctly. An example being the custodian and the legal assistant. It just didn't fit to me that they would be at the same grade.
So,
Can I make a comment?
but
Chair?
under what you just explained, if their salaries are the same currently, they would be the same grade, right? In your example.
No, because the custodian would be the starting wage for that position. That's their grade, right? Whereas a legal assistant's starting wage would be higher. So they should be a step or two down. We just didn't have enough in that 19 grades for Sarah to really lay it out the way that I've been taught in my class. You really do combine the positions that make sense, that they're similar, and they're similar starting wage. They are all the same grade. They can be in different departments, but what is their starting wage? And so that's why a custodian position and a legal assistant should not be the same, because you go by starting wage, not the wage they're making now, right? Does that make sense?
So can I make a suggestion? Maybe we ought to have this conversation in a work session coming up, because I think it'll,
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got,
Yeah,
and
a
one
lot
of the
of questions
I don't
here.
want to go back, I just want to give you a comment that you can think about, but the
Okay.
example I would like to use on this chart that I don't know how we could work is we have either 3 or 4 employees in the sheriff departments that are making more than the sheriff.
Mhm.
And I don't think if the sheriff were to put names and positions next to this, I don't think he would have those positions above him. He shouldn't. But that's another
That's
example
But
of
if
going,
we're just
okay,
going to
what's-
determine the grade based on the current wage, I'm adamantly against that.
It's not the
It
current
needs to be determined based on something else.
It's the starting wage for that position, not the wage they're making now.
Well, and even the starting wages you have on here, they don't jive at all with our current pay grade steps. Most of them are 20% higher.
But they're not the same. They're just lengthening it out. So somebody that was 20, 25, like I said on the other, is going to be a different grade, but they're not being on a different pay scale. And that's what's important, is that they're not changing pay scale.
So
Yeah.
saying this differently from my perspective. All right, given our current positions in the sheriff's department, where are each of those positions going to be? And so let's get that information and then.
Okay, I'd be happy
Well,
to.
I'm really concerned that this opens the door because you're gonna say, okay, they're a grade 22, and then they're gonna look at this scale and say, well, I'm a grade 22, but I'm only making $28 an hour, and this says that I should start out at $31 an hour, and we're gonna have.
Well, that's a good point in
We're gonna
terms
have
of
an
having
issue.
it correspond with the reality.
So
Yeah.
that's a whole nother discussion is,
Yeah.
does this jive with the reality?
Okay, let
Because
me
we
try
just
it out
talked
then.
about the fact that we're giving employees some pretty significant raises. I don't want this to open the door of all of a sudden, oh, well, but it doesn't jive with my grade here, so I need to ask for another
Yeah, no, no,
increase
no,
to,
no, no.
to get to
That's,
that.
yeah,
So
okay.
I think a work session would be wonderful to
Okay,
have
thank
that
you.
discussion.
So we can throw some scenarios at it.
Yeah, we need to have some scenarios and see if it works. If
Sounds-
it does, great. If it doesn't, then we need to rework it so that it does.
Okay.
It does have to be right.
Thank you.
And one of the other things is, we are meeting with the sheriff, and I know what this is probably one of the things he wants to go over, so it might help us to understand this a little bit closer with him. So, I move that we postpone this to a work session.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, and a second to postpone and discuss this in a work session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, let's move on to item 5. Commissioner Wilson. And Chad Peterson.
Okay. I'm just here to discuss building permit fine, to have a discussion on maybe a dismissal or a reduction in a fine that I got. I had a small window here. I applied for a building permit, first part of September, I believe. I don't know the exact dates, forgive me, it's been a long day. But I was trying to expedite the process just because of the short window that we had here with weather in Morgan. So to start off, I was just felt like I was getting slow responses with the permit process. I would go in to talk, see where we were at. A lot of times there was, nobody was available. I would make numerous phone calls without any answer to the phone call or any response through the email process. Just trying to get to the bottom of it to suffice what we needed to expedite the process. That went on, 2-3 weeks further. Went in, did get with Dave, talked to Dave a little bit about it. My plans were approved. Talked with him a little bit about getting, a partial permit or the approval to start my concrete pending the private lane. That was denied, and he has the right to do that. And I went ahead and started because, this was my home. I made the decision that I didn't want to try to get concrete done through frost. I know that was not correct on my part, but I did that. Been in doing construction for 25 years, just about every county in Utah. I don't want to say it's common practice, but it occurs a lot throughout the industry. A partial or approval to start pending small issues. I know that permission to start without a full permit has been granted to individuals in Morgan in the past. You know, I want to work with the county. I want to do things the right way, but I also want an expedited service on their part. And I know everybody's busy. Things take a long time to review this, and there's not a lot of other things to say without going into a lot of other detail. But I'm just asking for you guys to think about it, look at the situation, and either reduce or dismiss the fine. It was a full double permit fine is what was issued for it. And like I say, the plan, the building portion of the plan was approved when I started. We were just lacking a small detail. I'm going to be working on a project in Weber County here in just about a week where it's almost the very circumstance that I'm in. They were granted permission to start the project pending that the driveway, the frontage, whatever the issue was, get resolved, either by four-way or by occupancy. On that, Matt, me and Matt have talked extensively. Me and Blaine have talked. Me and Mike. If you guys can touch on anything that I talked to you about, it's. It's been
I
a
would just
day.
ask you the question, I guess. Chad, I always call you Shark, so sorry.
It's all right.
That after you started the process and were shut down, what did you have to do between that process of being shut down and getting your permit? What was?
I went in, talked to Dave the next morning, and he told me that my permit was ready and it was issued that day. That was it. I found it kind of, not to point fingers, but if it was ready that quickly, why was, what was the problem? I don't know what we were waiting for. If it was ready that quickly at that point, I don't know.
So you didn't resolve anything between?
No, nothing changed with the application.
Chad, I got a couple questions for you, and I haven't talked to you about this at all, so I apologize if you've already mentioned this to other commissioners. What date did you start your footings? Do you know, approximate?
Right now, I do not. I'm sorry.
Okay. And then, and I think one of the main points you made is that permission was granted through a process. When you made examples of what you're doing in Weber County, when you also mentioned that this has been allowed in Morgan County in the past, and I agree with you, but that actual permission was granted. But were you given that permission? You just went forward with it?
I moved forward.
And then the other question I've got is, I know that typically our building inspector does inspections on your rebar and steel. You know that too. And I thought there was mention that you had inspections done.
Yes.
Do we have any kind of documentation of any of that?
Dave
And
has that.
you have that, Dave? Okay.
Yeah, the inspector is
Sure. And then I guess the last, and this might be after you sit down, did you say Shark? I've never met you, Chad. I guess, Josh, I would be, I think we might have, can't remember if we've discussed this, if I have with you, Josh, but what's the reasoning for the double fee and what that covers when we're done asking Chad questions? That's all I've got.
What was the permit fee?
The total fee was 16,500.
So that's the double, or?
That was the
just-
double.
I think it was 60 something.
So the permit fee was $6,210.49. And our ordinance says when work is started without a permit, a fee of 100% of the building permit fee will be the correct amount. So it depends on, you know, the size of the project. But it was just in the ordinance, it's in the table. And that's what I went with, it's just 100%. So when the total fee with the fine added was 16,000 something, but in that fee there's plan review, there's impact fees, there's state fees, and
So what was the amount, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, what was the amount of the added cost? 6210.
6210.
Okay, so not, you were saying 16,000, but that's a total.
That's,
But the increase due to starting early is
Was
6,210, okay.
I put up on the screen the timeline from the planner. And that way you can look at that and determine what anybody wants. I still go back to the same thing I've said before. I guess if we're gonna break the law for one, we better break it for everybody.
I don't consider breaking the law.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
it's not the law, it's the code we have set up, or not us, but it will be for us. So if the code said that we should be, if they don't do the things proper before they've started building, then there is a fine. And I know he's requesting for a decrease in that, or a reduction in that fine. He knows he did wrong, at least that's what he said to me. And I'm just, if we want to change the code and make it to where the penalty's less, then we as a board, as a commission, need to change that. At this time, the code is that he pays double the fee for starting without a permit. Now, I'm gonna state one more thing along with that, and that is there's a lot of building that goes on in this county without permits, which is not right. There's people that put up fences that are not according to our code. If we don't like the way that is, we need to come in and change that code to where it's more amenable to everybody. For me, yes, I would like to go and put a building a shed in my backyard, but if it's over 200 square feet, I have to go and get a permit. If I want to put a barn up in my yard because I'm in agriculture and call it agriculture, I still have to go and get an agricultural permit. So if we want to change those fees, we have to go and do it legislatively by us. And it's up to you guys and myself as to whether or not we want to change our fee schedule, our fine schedule. And do we want just willy-nilly anybody starting a building and then come back in for a permit later? That's the point I have, the main point.
Different variances of variables of things, and that's why we're humans. We have a brain to think through things. I want to ask Dave, what changed between the day of it's not issued yet and 3 days later?
Yeah, the thing that changed was, and I'm just, nothing changed for me, other than, the fire marshal had asked me to hold off on this until they could square away, some sprinkler issues. I told the fire marshal that unless he told me specifically not to let it go, he'd already basically approved it with sprinklers, and my policy on that is, if the fire marshal said it needs sprinklers, it needs sprinklers, but we don't have any way of guaranteeing it ahead of time. Basically, the standard procedure is the sprinkler systems are installed and inspected and tested by the fire marshal as part of the rough inspection. So that was one thing. The other thing was that there was a question about driveway access. I know that fire equipment access is a big thing in situations. And to be honest, I know nothing about what the requirements are or how they come up with them or any of that. But there was some question about whether the design met those requirements. And so, from my point of view, I was waiting for planning and engineering to give me the go-ahead with that. The thing that changed was the morning we issued the permit, Josh told me to go ahead, that he was good with it as long as we made the note that the road had to be done in accordance with whatever the engineering requirements are for that particular thing as part of a condition for the certificate of occupancy. And so that's when I issued the permit, is when that was determined that was the route we were going to take. So.
Can I say one thing? You know, the road, the private lane issue, I have a letter from Josh from, I don't know, 2021, okay, 2022, when it's from you. I can show it to you, where the private lane was approved at that point for the lot. Now, I don't know what more goes into that, you know, as far as the plat, but with the requirements of the private lane. It was my understanding that my private lane was approved already through that letter from Josh and Morgan. Also, I've met with the fire department 3 times now on my fire suppression. Matt, you have it. Mike, you have it. The state ordinance on that, I don't know if you've had time to look at it and read it, or if you have. I've met with Garrett about it, about the state code exemption. You know, and still on my permit, fire review not complete. You know,
So
there-
this is Garrett, and I met with you, Chad, but I made it very clear because you initially came in and said, are you going to follow state code? I read the state code and I said, yeah, you don't qualify. And then you're like, well, can't you give an exception? I said, no, we follow the code. And so I just wanted to throw that in because I don't want to be taken out of context with anything that I said at a prior meeting.
And I guess the point I'm bringing up, Chad, also is it's kind of hard because I think you look at something like this and you say, if you wanted to beat the weather, could have started this process and spring, right? So I don't know if that's, and then my concern was when that footing was started, because I think if it's an intent of completely ignoring the process and just starting a footing back on the day after you submitted a permit application, that's one thing. I think it's another thing when you're trying. I mean, I look at these timelines, and I've been in this for many years also, and let me finish real quick, Chad. I've been doing this for many years also, and I think this is reasonable. For a person that wants to get a house done a review done in a month, this isn't reasonable. But for a process to take a month and a half, just over a month and a half, for a building permit review, I think that's fairly reasonable. But understanding you had a time crunch, so I guess that's the thought I have with the footing is, if you were fighting, finally said, you know what, I got to get going because I'm not going to get this done in time for snow. That makes sense. But I guess what wouldn't make sense is if you just kind of did it regardless.
With Blaine and Mike, and I accept that. I accept that. That's on me, not getting going earlier. But, you know, I have the letter from Dave that was submitted day one with the permit. And they come back and said it was not submitted. I resubmitted from the email that I sent them, the exact same fire deferral. You know, and like I say, the private lane, when it was denied, I went in person, asked them what they were after. I couldn't get an answer. I got the civil engineer's number, called him on the phone. Why was this denied? What are we looking for? Couldn't give me an answer. I asked him, you looking for a cross-section detail? You looking for the other parcel that the driveway goes through? Couldn't get an answer. How is something, if I can't, and I did not get a chance to talk to Josh, he was not there. I think I told Jeremy to have him call me, please, so we could get this resolved. You know, I didn't get a response. I submitted everything that I could think of at that point. And honestly, and this is just a feeling, I'm not saying it's accurate, I feel like if I wouldn't have just started, I quite possibly could not still have my permit. You know, it just seems like, you know, I was urgent because it was my project. And I know everybody's busy with other things. You know, it's something.
But Chad, this is Garrett again.
Yeah.
There are provisions in our code and state code that give you remedies if you feel that your process isn't being moved quickly enough, and you didn't follow any of those. I think a lot of my concerns are in line with what Commissioner Fackrell said earlier, and this is just the suggestion I'm making as a county attorney. We need to treat everyone the same. If the commission waives or reduces fees here, then they need to waive or reduce for everyone. And I am aware from my discussions with Josh that this has not happened in the past. Everyone who builds without a permit is double fined. And so my suggestion is to comply with our adopted rules or change them. And as a legislative body, the commission, you have the authority to change the policy if you think it isn't a good policy. But from what I've gathered speaking with Josh, the reason the double fine is there is to deter this very type of behavior, because permitting isn't necessarily to protect you, Chad, the person building the home, who arguably has a right to manage your own risk. It's about protecting, you know, maybe family or heirs or future owners. And so I know that it's not always a popular mantra, but for the last 2.5 years since I've been at the county, whenever anyone comes in to ask me about code, I say we comply with the code or we change it. And my perspective on that is otherwise the force of law has no effect, and people are confused at what applies and when it applies and so on and so forth. So I think it's a good discussion. It's something that should be looked at, but before the commission makes a decision, hopefully they can just keep some of those things in mind.
So I have a question, Garrett. I've looked and I'm not finding any provision in our code that authorizes us to waive or reduce this fee. Is there something that I'm not seeing that you're aware of?
I have not found that either.
So I just, if I may, Dave is actually the one that suggested if I bring it before the council, maybe that you guys could waive or reduce it.
No, I appreciate you coming and asking the question. That is the appropriate process to follow. But, and Dave, I don't know if you're aware of a provision that allows us to reduce or waive or modify, or Chad, if you are. I think the point's well taken in terms of having to comply with our own ordinances. If there was a provision in the ordinance that authorized us to waive or reduce a fee based upon special circumstances, because there are for certain things in the code, but I can't find it for a building permit fine. And so that's the issue I have with making the change. Now, whether or not there should be one, that's a different issue, you know. But in terms of considering your application and request, that's kind of what I'm looking for in terms of an authorization to make the change.
Okay.
So Garrett, you said that Josh said that this has never happened in our county before. I think that's really a bold statement to make, because.
No, what I said was that when people do this, they're double fined.
Okay, so are you saying then that this has never been done, that it hasn't been fined? I guess that's what I heard.
That it hasn't been reduced?
I don't know that. I don't
Okay,
know
that's-
that because I don't deal with it.
But you
In
said
speaking
Josh
with
said that.
Yeah, in speaking with Josh, he said that when people
That's not true,
move
by the
forward
way.
without a building permit, they're double fined.
That's not true, by the way. But, so I think we
Well, then let Josh
need to be
speak to
really
that.
careful about saying those kind of things, because things have happened in the past and they haven't been fined. So we need to
Well,
be
then I
careful
think
about
that
that.
Josh can speak to that, and we
Okay.
can look at those, we can look at those examples when they happen, but it didn't happen that I'm aware of, because I would not have supported that unless you do it for everyone. Because we need to treat everyone the same as a public body.
Okay. I agree that everybody ought to be treated the same. It hasn't always happened in Morgan, though.
That's correct. In Morgan, things are different, and we have not treated everything the same. Same as what I mentioned a few weeks ago with ATVs. Everybody needs to follow the law if we're gonna do it, if we have that law, whether it's state law or a county law or whatever it is. I think we need to follow whatever we have, or we change it.
I'd like to say one more thing to Garrett while we've got you. On that, you said that I didn't meet the exemption for the fire situation. I don't remember you telling me that. I remember you telling me look into it and find out, and I have. I think I believe I meet the requirement of the state ordinance. I think that's something that needs to be really looked at.
Yeah, and I'm happy to talk to you about that,
I mean-
because we did address it that day, and I think the question came up whether you would qualify as a one-lot subdivision, and that's what I said I'd look into. And I don't know if I probably didn't speak with you, but in speaking with fire, if you look at the definition of subdivision in one lot within the state code, you don't fall within those exceptions.
Okay.
So from now on, I guess we all get permits, or at least ask and see whether or not the permit is required. It includes myself and anybody else. That's exactly right.
I guess my biggest problem with the whole thing is that a permit was issued with no changes. That's my biggest problem with the whole thing. That there was a question, can I have it? No, you can't. I start my footings and 2 days later I have my permit with no changes.
So
That's a
then,
problem.
are you saying he started his footings on the 17th of October?
No, he started them on the day that he went in and said, are my plans approved? And they said, yes, your plans are fine, but you can't go ahead yet. I'm not gonna issue the permit. That's what Dave said. And then he went ahead and said, I've got my window, I'm gonna take it. And then Dave put a stop on it, and a day later, he has his plans with no changes. That's the problem I have.
Josh, do you want to address that?
Yeah, let's hear.
Yeah, he started prior to the 18th of October. The stop work order was issued on the 18th. Permit was issued on the 25th. What hasn't been said here is that, and he kind of alluded to it by going after Garrett and talking to him about the fire inspection, things like that. A lot of the problem here has been him arguing with staff continually about the shared driveway and the fire suppression. Some of the lack there was the requirement for a geoscoping application to see if a full geohazards report was needed. So staff has followed the statutory requirements of responding within the 14 business days, and we have followed our code to the best of our ability. If there's been a lack of communication, I apologize for anything like that, but we have been responsive. We did issue the permit when it was ready to go.
But what changed? That's my question. What changed?
Well, nothing has to change. If you don't have a permit, don't start work. That's
I understand that.
Okay.
part. I'm just saying, what changed?
what
Did you
changed is the
issue
fire
permit?
department, like Dave said, the fire department said that they were good to go. So we issued the permit with the understanding that the fire inspection would take place at the four-way, and that the shared driveway, which is supposed to be designed to a private lane standard, which our code does define, would need to take place prior to the certificate of occupancy, and that's what occurred.
Clarification on when the private lane had to be approved. Initially, we were talking that we needed to have the documents in and approved before we issued the permit. I don't know what documents were submitted, but I don't know how the decision was made, but the decision was made that we would hold the certificate of occupancy until the private lane, or whatever it's called, was complete. And from my personal experience, I don't like to issue partial permits for just the reason is when it gets down to final and something isn't right, that's a whole lot harder to stop than before any work is done. So, it's not like I willy-nilly decide not to issue permits. And yes, we do issue permits. We issue a lot of concrete-only permits at Wasatch Peaks. The reason we issue partial is everything's approved ahead of time, but the reason that we issue partial is based on the fire department's recommendation that they can't fight a fire on a building made of wood if they don't have enough water, and that's typically the concern. We have another one, they don't have water at all, and we've allowed them to start with footing and foundation. But that was a decision that was made by the council or the commission, not by my department. So yes, we do it. I don't like doing it, and I try not to do it. But there are circumstances when it has to happen. I don't really remember the conversation about doing a concrete only permit. My memory isn't what it used to be, but my standard answer is no, we don't do it. So, and just as a matter of information, so far this year, we have become aware of 6 buildings started without permit. And of those 6, 3 of them have been permitted, and 3 of them have paid the double fee, which includes Mr. Peterson's job. But we have 3 more that aren't issued yet, but they have been invoiced with the 100% permit fee. So, you know, I can't speak for things in the past, or what's happened and hasn't happened, but and yes, there are a lot of buildings that are built without permit. We try to catch them, but you know, we don't go look in everybody's backyard on a daily basis either. So when we find them, we follow the code when we deal with it. So you know, when it says since I've worked here, we have double feed everyone that has been caught without a permit issue, starting work without a permit issue. So, you know, I don't think that we're being selective here, and you know, I try to follow the code, I guess is what I'm saying, and I don't think I'm being partial to one contractor or another, or a resident or another. You know, it's when I'm made aware of it, we deal with it in accordance with the code.
So I'm certainly sympathetic to the situation. I mean, that's a lot of money. That's a big permit. And maybe the takeaway here is we need to review that and decide if 100% is the right number. I don't know if it is or isn't. But I also have a hard time, if that's what's in the code, that's what's in the code. If we don't like it, then we ought to talk about changing it for sure. But I have a hard time going against the code. If we do it here, we got to do it elsewhere, or at least that's my feeling. So I wish there was a different answer to that. I wish there was a provision in the code that said, hey, you can adjust this if need be. I don't see that. I was looking through the code as well. There's a provision on impact fees, but that's not part of this discussion. So those are my thoughts.
Step up here. So I want to just discuss one more thing. You know, prior to the application of the permit, I went in and talked to him about, I actually hired a development consultant to put all this together. We've been working on this for 4 years now. Thought we had all our ducks in a row. They actually told me that didn't need a geoscope study because I was not on a slope. Not knowing that, I went in with that, asked them, you know, why I needed a geotech study, and, you know, well, that's the code. You know, since everything has occurred, there is a line in the state code that says the geo study is not required unless your lot is more than 15% slope. She was going off that, you know, I went with that. I wanted to ask a question. And I don't understand why I needed a full study on a flat lot. I can see a soils report. a soils test done on a flat lot for water, liquefiable soils, things like that, that's $500. Geotechnical study is $10,000 for a flat lot. Talking to another builder here in the county that does a lot of remodels. He's got 2 remodels going right now in the county. The homes have been there, they're not remodels, they're addition. The homes have been there 50 to 60 years. Had to do a full geo study on those. I just feel like, and I don't know if this to be the case, but it feels like Morgan is requiring more than the state guidelines at times. Me and Josh talked about a geotechnical study that would incorporate the 3 parcels. Talking with the geologist, he said, well, normally, are you going to split the lot? I says, no, I'm not splitting the lot. Well, normally we do 1 geo study, we do 4 or 5 test spots, then they split the lots into how many parcels that they want, or split the parcel and how many lots they want after the geotechnical study. I feel like, I was told that, no, I would have to do a geotechnical study for each individual parcel. But yet now, for the fire situation, I'm being told that I'm not a 1-lot parcel. So for me, it's a little bit conflicting as far as what am I? What do I classify as? I didn't go through the subdivision process. I'm building on 1 parcel that's been in the same configuration for 100 years. It's flat. I don't know why I needed a full geotech study, especially when the state guideline says, 15%. Morgan County Code does say every lot needs a geotechnical study. As I read into the code more, I feel like that's not what it's saying. I feel like it's saying you need a geo study if there is a geological hazard. And you read further into it, and it's mostly just a soils test. Same with the fire suppression. I feel like I meet the state exemption. I have spoken with an attorney, and he says, yes, you do meet the state exemption. We haven't pursued that any further, but I intend to. You take $10,000 for a geotechnical study on a flat lot. You take $40,000 for a fire suppression system. All these little things. One thing that me and Josh haven't talked about is the other 2 parcels that I have. I don't want to call them lots because in my eye, they're not really a lot until all the land use requirements have been met. They are nothing more than a tract of land. I don't know if that is a real thing or not, but I don't believe when I own the property and there's no development process being made on the other 2, do I need to meet the private lane standards at this point? I don't know. And a little bit, I'd like to just get it done, but to a certain degree, I feel like I'm being nickel and dimed a little bit. I'm fully accepting starting without a permit. I don't dispute that one bit. I knew the consequences were there. I accepted the consequences. I've told Matt, you know what? It quite possibly was less money for me to deal with the fine consequence than to deal with trying to get footings, foundation, and concrete done, dealing with frost and snow and freezing temperature. And, I actually, I appreciate Dave. Dave has worked with me great since then, pretty well the whole process. It's been good. Yeah, if I had the opportunity to get the fine reduced, that's why I'm here. Got to try. But we're on the right track now. I just want to move forward, and you know. But like I say, I mean, I know that it's somewhat common to issue partial permits. And I asked Dave for a partial permit. I did. And I know you don't like to do it. You told me that. I know. And I went ahead on my own account and done that. I just wanted to, you know, I just knew. And it's not their fault. I was running out of time. I knew that. But anyway, I just here to plead my case. I went into some more deeper thoughts, you know, in private settings with some others, but that I don't wish to go into now in a public setting. But,
Thank you, Chad.
all right.
Commissioners, any comments? Anything further? Okay. Let's move to item number 6. Excuse me, do you want to, is there an action item on this that we need to take? Okay.
Do you want to go to number 6, or do you?
Oh,
wanna go
I'm
back
sorry,
to
no,
the-
we need to go to our
public hearing.
public hearing for the budget adjustments.
Let me just suggest something, though.
Yes.
If we don't make a decision, I mean, if he wants to appeal a decision, then we would need to make a decision in order for him to appeal it.
That's fair enough.
And so I'm just wondering if we ought to make a motion, and then if he believes it's subject to an appeal, he has the right to appeal it.
I think that's a wise decision. Is that a motion you're making?
I'll make a motion to deny Mr. Peterson's request that we waive or eliminate the penalty for proceeding without a building permit.
I'll second it.
A motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Take a real quick break and then we'll go to the budget.
dinner. That was a pretty good dinner. Start.
Okay, we're going to reconvene here, and we are moving to our public hearing for our 2023 budget amendments. So we'll turn the time over
Again.
to our wonderful clerk auditor here. Thank you.
Betcha. We're gonna make this fast. So this resolution, we will be making department adjustments, fund balance adjustments. We're adding a grant and some other fund adjustments. Resolution CR 2314, do you have any questions?
All of these have been discussed previously and approved previously. This is just the actual changes.
Pretty much, yes.
So it's not this sheet that you gave to us, is that correct?
No, that was for
That-
2024.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything
I'm
for this
okay
was
with
in
the
your
others.
packet.
So it's been approved, we're just ratifying it? or what?
No, the adjustments were approved, but we're actually making the adjustments in the budget now, if that makes sense. So, in years past, we used to do our budget amendments all at once at the end of the year, but I think it was really messy, and so we moved to this quarterly budget adjustment. I think it's worked pretty well. Do you have any feedback on that, Leslie? Do
I
you think
agree.
we
I
ought to
think
do something
quarterly is-
different, or is this
No,
working?
I think it's working well.
I also like that come budget time, we're looking at a little better picture
Yes,
than we would be if we wait till the end of the year. Because by then, it's too late. We've already
yeah.
Right.
And we
adjusted for the next
remember,
years.
I'd like to talk a little bit at department head meeting on Monday that we need to remember that we need to plan for bills that are still going to come in after the first of the year. And department heads need to remember that. And if they need the money, we need to get it taken care of so they don't blow the budget.
Do we need to do another budget adjustment
We will be doing one in the last meeting in December.
in December? That's what I was thinking.
Yep.
Okay. All right, that's good. But the nice thing is that we're keeping up ahead of the problems that we've had for the last 5 years according to the audit.
We're trying.
And we're trying to hopefully get it straightened out this year.
This might be the first year we don't have that item in
Yeah.
the audit since I've been here.
We got our audit in on time this year. We might as well get everything right this year.
Awesome.
For the first time.
Okay, any questions then for Leslie? And if not, we'll look for a motion on resolution CR 23-14. I'm sorry, we do need to open a public hearing. Thank you for
I'll
bringing
make a
that up.
motion that we open the public hearing.
Thank you. Do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
We have a motion, a second to open the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. We are now in public hearing regarding adjustments to the 2023 budget. Okay, seeing no public comment, look for a motion to close the public hearing and reconvene the public meeting.
So moved.
Second.
A motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
So if Robert's not here, that part didn't even happen. We just keep going.
Apparently, we would have just done it. Somebody would have caught it.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve resolution CR-23-14, a resolution of the Morgan County Commission adopting general certain amendments to Morgan County's 2023 budget as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Leslie, and thank you for your patience here.
Now you've learned a few things tonight. You've learned a few more things tonight.
All right. We are going to go back to action items then. We are on action item number 6. This is discussion, decision, ratification of the proposal from Legislative Solutions for consulting and lobbying services. I did want to note that after the last discussion, there was a change made to this, and that is on, let me find the page. It's in the addendum. Take me just a second to find the page here. So in Exhibit A, under number 3 on the term, originally that was a 24-month term, but in speaking with Kerry about this, he changed that to just be that it automatically renews, but there is a 30-day out. So he was comfortable with that. I actually think that's a better deal for us than changing it to a 1 year, which we had originally discussed. So that was the only change that's been made since the last time you saw this. Any questions, comments?
question.
Okay. If not, I'll look for a motion on this item.
I'll make a motion, we approve, Morgan County proposal from Legislative Solutions Consulting and Lobbying Services with the, adjustments as noted.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right. Commissioner Anderson, Weber River floodplain mapping study.
This has been a long time in coming, but we were able to obtain funding for, as you can see, let me get to the page on their proposal. It would be page 222 on our PDF packet. But it's basically from the county fairgrounds all the way to west of the city dump. In fact, just east of the sewer plant there. We worked with we've got the previous FEMA modeler who worked with another firm at the time and actually modeled this in a 1D method. So fast forward to now, they can do a 2D method, which means what you see right now has a very good ability to be reduced. So I know we've talked about this for a few months. Talked about where we would get the matching funding. We got, I think it's a 50% match through CIB, and we're able to get the $50,000 through another. We've talked about it, but we can double check on where that 50 is going to come from, with mainly through tourism funds. That's all right, Blaine. Mainly.
We're not sure yet.
But we did discuss it.
We did discuss it.
So with this and with CRS helping with the funding, talked with Garrett, and Garrett said, hey, we still have to put this out to RFP. So we put it out to RFP. We only got one person to submit, which was CRS, and their group to be able to do this analysis for us.
I have a question for you, Jared, on that. On the map, it shows that it's coming from east of Como Springs. It's up into it's part of or it's all our property, basically, is where it's going, from our property down to the sewer plant. Is that correct?
Yeah, can you see the 2 red lines?
Yeah.
If you want to scroll down to that, Jeremy, I don't know. I think you
Page
have,
222 of our packet.
yeah, you have 259.
Scroll down
so-
a little further.
Yeah, it's just down a little lower, keep going down.
And my question on this is,
Right there.
so this is what we approved last year to have done, and now we have an RFP
Correct.
that has been. So my question is it going to include, I mean, as far as the scope, is it going to include the irrigation ditches and how we can mitigate that to where we don't have to continually put rocks into the river every year?
If you look at this, what they do is they analyze from the red line to the red line, the Weaver River.
Okay.
So, yeah, I did have a conversation with them along with River Restoration with the work we're working with on them and said, hey, for the first time in years, we actually took out the 2 dams that can, contribute to flooding.
Right.
Took them out last year and we didn't see any flooding last year. So I did mention to them, we need to analyze this as if those are not in place, so.
Okay, because I'd like to see them, see if they can figure out if we were to put in some kind of a V or whatever they do in ditch, so that we don't, so we still have a run by on the river and we can have that.
That'd be River Restorations,
That would be, okay,
yes.
okay.
So this is the proposed, what it'll look like?
No, this is
No.
existing.
This is just
Existing.
Yep.
So where's the proposed?
Well, that's what they'll have to do.
That's what
So
they're gonna do.
they'll
This is
model
just-
this, and what happens for the most part is it reduces. You can never say it'll disappear, obviously, but they'll reduce it. They'll have meetings with us, discuss with us, hey, how does this look? Have we seen previous flooding in this area? We've reduced it this for this and this reason, and they meet multiple times with the county. I'm sure our county engineer and planning staff will be involved in that also, and I think we'll get a much better, more accurate representation of the flooding in that
Yeah.
area.
Yeah, I thought so too. So I was asking the question a while ago is, where is it at? So I appreciate
It's
it.
not done,
Okay. Well, I'm glad it's here finally.
yes,
At least the approval of the contractor.
yes.
Okay. So do we need a proposal?
Yeah, we need a motion if that's what you're.
Yes, we got it.
So this is a response to an RFP, but not the actual contract, or is?
Yeah, so we can approve this, because this is a proposal. If we can approve this proposal, we can then move forward with the actual contract and make sure the contract's in place correctly.
They'll meet with us a couple of times still.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the CRS proposal dated October 27th, 2023, with respect to the Weaver River floodplain mapping study.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. And thank you for the work on that. I know it has been a long time coming, so excited to see the results now. Okay, last action item here before we move into our public hearings. Commissioner Anderson, do you want to introduce this one? This
Yes.
is the proposal for professional services for the Recorder's Office.
Yeah, so there's been discussions on what we can do as commission to help the Recorder's Office. You could probably make a big list if Brenda were here and say, hey, here's all the items I could need help in. I know she's come to budget and expressed a lot of things she needs help with, and so as we were discussing this, we said, well, if we could have a third party come in and follow her around, and not just any individual, but a person that's worked in the Recorder's Office or been a recorder, has turned an office around, and what they've done to be able to help support Brenda and what she needs to do moving forward. I reached out to Boundary Line Surveying. Devron was a previous Cache County recorder, also worked in Weaver County Recorder's Office for years, and helped turn the Cache County Recorder's Office around. Also, after talking with Brenda, we talked with Jason Monroe from Sevier County, and he's a Sevier County recorder, and he's offered his services to come up and also. So we would love to approve this proposal tonight and have Devron get going on his work. We'd also like to have Jason come. I also gave Brenda, because she was interested in reaching out to even more counties, and I gave her Tooele, Box Elder, Summit, Washington, Iron, and Utah counties, because all of those recorders in those counties are very proactive in what they're doing and what they're looking at. So I think more than anything, this is just a proposal to be able to help the recorder's office get in a better place. And appreciate Brenda being open. She's, as you guys know, she's been here for many, many years, and I think any of us that been in a job for many, many years, it's hard for us to accept others' input. But appreciate Brenda being willing to say, yep, I'll see what they have to say. And I think it'll help us commissioners because we'll have a third party being able to say, hey, guys, what she's saying is correct, or here's some added things. So,
Yeah, it's basically just to help the recorder's office, and as long as we have, I think if we have what we've suggested, the two different, the office from Sevier County or whatever other county we decide, plus this one, I think we could end up having a very good, what do you call it, an analysis of what we can do to help her in her office to make things smoother for her. So,
What's the funding source for this?
non-departmental, I think, wasn't it?
Is Brenda there at the meeting?
No, she's not.
Okay. And I don't know how much I know she's been talking with each of you. She's mentioned a few things to me. One thing that I thought I'd bring up is Brett is working on some different remodels in two of the offices to accommodate new people working. One's my office, one's Brenda's. And I do know Brenda at least mentioned to me, she's like, oh, it might be hard to kind of observe everything if we're in that. So I was looking at the agreement, and it says that everything will be done within 3 weeks. And I just wanted to point out, I don't know when that construction is going to get started.
I don't think that construction will be within the next 3 weeks, because Brett was gonna bring that bid to the commission for approval. And he doesn't have that ready yet, so it'll at least be after the next meeting.
Okay.
But that is a good point, maybe something we can let the contractor know that it'd be good to get in and do this observation as soon as possible.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the September 18th, 2023 proposal from Boundary Line Surveying, the amount of $4,500, funding source to be non-departmental.
awesome.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll abstain. Okay, motion. We had two actually, but give it to Commissioner.
Give it to Commissioner Wilson. He doesn't hardly gets it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that concludes our action items. We will now move into our public hearings. We have two this evening. The first one is the Smith-Hammond rezone. Jeremy, are you presenting this one? All right, we'll hand it over to you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the County Commission. This item is G1 for tonight's agenda is application 23.049. The applicant, the applicant is Brandy Hammond and the property owner is Debbie Smith. The project location is at 7533 North Trappers Loop Road. Current zoning is MU 160. The general plan designation has a similar designation at natural resources and recreation. The acreage for this property is 51.94 acres, and the request here is to rezone from MU 160 to RR5, and to have that change reflect on the future land use map as well, from natural resources and rec to ranch residential 5-acre minimum. Staff has reviewed this project and finds that it meets all minimum code requirements for a zoning map amendment change and a future land use map amendment. There are no fire or engineer comments on this proposal. Staff is recommending approval for 3 simple reasons. First, the property is currently non-conforming as it's 50-ish acres in a 160-acre zone. The surrounding, there is high density surrounding this property to the south mainly. this is also a part of the Snow Basin Development Agreement. The Planning Commission met to hear this item on October 12, their regularly scheduled meeting. The vote to approve this, well, to recommend approval to this body was unanimous, with Member Phillips being absent and Chair Sessions abstaining. Our office has received very few phone calls, one visit. The asks from those residents of the county were just to ask technical questions on what the rezone was. But I can answer any questions you may have, so can Josh. And the applicant is not in the audience tonight. The Planning Commission meeting, that was like days before her mission to South America. I'm not quite sure where, and so
She went to Ecuador.
Ecuador. That's what it is, and so.
In fact, that is where I served, and that's where I served with her. So it's kind of a neat thing for her to be able to go back.
I don't see the agent here as well, but family members are here. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, if I can. I noticed in the planning commission meeting that they talked about slopes and so forth and all that kind of stuff. Even though it's an RR5, is there going to be, I mean, what happens on those lots, potential lots, that they can't build on? Is there something that happens there? I mean, if we're doing a RR5?
Yeah, and the concept plan, okay, so with the entitlements potentially granted tonight dictating 5-acre lots at minimum, then we can then look at the topography starting all the way at concept plan. It's more of a site plan issue as an administrative item, but looking at the concept plan, we could get a rough estimate of how many lots they could subdivide. Obviously it not being as simple as 50 divided by 5, but we would look at that and look at the new rural county standard for 60 feet right of way, put in all of those factors and see what's even doable going towards site plan at that stage.
Any other questions for staff?
I did get one call from a resident in Trappers Point, and it was just, I think, a confusion in terms of the way they were reading the staff report. There's a statement that this project is a mile north and west of Trappers Point, and they were reading that as suggesting that it was adjacent to them on the north and west side. And once I found the language that they were reading, I said, no, it is north and west if you look at it. And I just told her to pull up the packet and look at the site, because it is north and west, but it's a mile north, so it's not adjacent to. And you correctly state that it is east of Trappers Loop, and I said if you look at the depictions, you'll be able to see that. But for anyone who was having the same confusion, she said there were a number of people. I thought I'd just raise the point.
Sure.
Just a quick question, Jeremy. I think to the west of this is where Spring Mountain? Nine Springs Ridge. I believe that's where they're coming in to also do a rezone here in the future.
The Snow Basin Development Properties.
They're currently going through the process right now. Nine Springs Ranch, we've reviewed 2 iterations of it. We're waiting for them to resubmit.
And I guess this future land use map, because I know that's been can be a hot discussion when we go for rezones, but if we had the correct future land use map, it'd actually show that as being in a development of some sort, or, because the point I'm making is we've got this big green area, and I don't know what that.
So on the current future land use map, that is not a development area. It's currently MU 160.
Correct.
Now they can ask for a
But-
change for that, but
Correct, but I guess what I'm meaning is it would look better to say, hey, we've got, for the future, this is what we think is going to be happening in this area, because we kind of have a decent idea. Anyway,
Are you talking about with the general plan amendment or
whatever
update?
yeah, I'm not talking about the process as much. Yeah, whatever process we need to take, but yeah, they're working on developing that parcel to the west also.
Yeah, and it would, the future land use map would change to resort special district like WPR did.
Yeah.
The only clarification I would make from the presentation is that this property is not part of Snow Basin, but the Snow Basin development allows for greater density in areas that are adjacent to this property than what's being asked.
Well, and that's what I'm getting at. If you have a bunch of MU 160 and all of a sudden we have a RR5 out in the middle of nowhere, that's one thing.
I'm just wondering.
Doesn't seem to be the case with this, where it's right in the middle of two developments that are going to be happening in the future.
That's correct.
I'm just wondering why it was not asked for smaller density, I mean, more density.
From, I guess, the
Said they
planning
wanted to
perspective,
do larger estate lots in the back.
larger estate
Yeah,
lots.
I know,
and then,
but I'm just
I would imagine
curious because
slopes
of
may
the.
have something to do with that as well.
Okay, well, that's why I was thinking larger. That way they can maybe, because it's gonna be right next to Nine Springs, and then it's gonna be next to Snow Basin, and depending on what Snow Basin decides to do, you know, 5 acre may not fit within that. Maybe they need to have a higher density in smaller area. So I don't know if that RR5 can accommodate that or not, or should we be allowing them to have a higher density?
I had multiple conversations with the applicant and the property owner, and they were looking for the larger lot. That's what they wanted.
I
That's
just
fine.
think you're gonna have to have a larger lot with the topography. It's
Yeah,
gonna
that's
go
right.
down over the hill, a
They'll
lot
fit
of it.
everything in
Yeah,
there.
you're right. I agree. I just keep questioning.
It provides good buffering as well with.
You're gonna go
and stuff.
crazy if we keep asking what's going on in the minds of the development community.
You know, it's just the way it happens at this age.
Okay, any other questions for staff? All right. Any comments for the applicants?
Only
Okay.
if they wanna talk,
That, we'll look for a motion then.
don't
Do
we
we
have to
need
go
to-
into
Public hearing.
Oh, sorry, this is, oh, thank you.
I'm with you
Tonight, I'm just ready to get this stuff
I'm all for the
moving through,
efficiency, but
so,
I'll make a motion that we open the public hearing on this item.
And I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, to adjourn the public hearing, or excuse me, adjourn the public meeting and convene the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we are now in public hearing for item number 1, Smith Hammond rezone. Okay, seeing no public comment, look for a motion to adjourn the public hearing and reconvene the public meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. We are now back in the public meeting and looking for a motion on item number 1. G1.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the Smith Hammond rezone map amendment application number 23.049, changing 51.94 acres from MU 160 to RR5, based on the findings listed in the staff report dated November 7th, 2023.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. All right, on to our last public hearing of the evening. Item G2, dry utilities text amendment.
This item has been brought before you several times to kind of talk about dry utilities, where it should apply, subdivisions, etc. We've done some research. We sent you copies of all the cities and counties that we had kind of looked at and talked with, and the research we had gathered. Before we kind of get into this discussion, I'd like to turn the time over to Mark Miller for him to kind of talk about his experience with dry utilities, and he sent over some language. I emailed that to you prior to the meeting, and then maybe we can kind of go over that language and discuss how you'd like to proceed.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for having me tonight. Jeremy had sent his packet over to, he actually gave this to me last Thursday, and I've been under the weather, and I am very sorry I didn't get back to them until earlier this afternoon. What Josh has provided you in red were basically my comments on the proposed changes that Jeremy had. So anything in red, I just, like I crossed out utilities, put in utility crossings, roadways. And then in the bold down below, I had defined secondary water as being a utility as well, because that wasn't in there. I don't know if Garrett's still on the line or not, but there's been quite a rush of new dry utility providers, Connex, All West. A lot of them are pushing us out, and Roy to come in. To me, this is the last sentence that I put in here. All subdividers and developers shall contract individually with utility companies, and no utility shall be allowed in public right-of-way or easements without a Morgan County approved franchise agreement. So first of all, the way that dry utilities work is we require them. We say you need telecommunication, but it's really a market-driven thing. I've seen subdivisions where they put Comcast in the back and CenturyLink in the front, because the subdividers want the future lot purchasers to have the ability to go with one or the other. So it's always been a market-driven private thing. All the cities I've ever worked with has just required telecommunications. And it's, like I said, as long as, and this is, I mean, you're not limiting them through this change in ordinance. You're just saying, look, whoever's coming needs, as far as dry utilities or wet utilities, as defined herein, you need to make sure you have an existing franchise agreement with Morgan County. And that's something that I've probably seen. I read it in one of your research elements, Jeremy, where they were looking into their franchise agreements, but that's basically the agreement between Morgan County and the utility provider that says, look, you can be a guest in our right-of-way. This right-of-way is owned and maintained by the citizens of this county, paid for by the citizens of this county, and you're a guest in this right-of-way. Rocky Mountain Power, telecommunication, gas, whatever it is. The franchise agreement is simply an agreement that sets out all the potential conditions that could exist and who pays for what, on what notice they have to move those if we're widening the road or something else like that. Frequently, these, especially dry utilities with all of these new providers, frequently just come in and start installing conduits or cable in your right-of-way without either permits or a franchise agreement. And I've reviewed dozens and dozens of those over the years, and have usually worked hand in glove with the city or county attorney on the wording, just because we know where we could get ourselves. I remember one time, Rocky Mountain Power, we were widening a road. They sent us an invoice in Roy City for $175,000. I found a 30-year-old franchise agreement that said if we were to widen our roads, they were responsible for payment of relocating their utilities. That's the thing I'm recommending most highly this evening is, look, we have verbiage in here to say, look, you have to have the following utilities if you're a subdivider or a developer. Meaning a developer would be the people building leads. They're not subdividing, they're developing, right? Subdividers are people subdividing land. You need the following utilities in, and then, but as I understand the contents of the previous meetings, and I think I maybe got 1% of it because there's been a lot of discussion on this. There's been a lot of discussion about what size of conduits they should put in, where they should be located, and different things like that. Rocky Mountain Power has a manual about that big, and so does like Dominion, who's now purchased by someone else, that about their utility standards. and they will require the developer to sign a contract and pay them a lot of money to install utilities in the developer subdivision, and they hold them to that standard aside from the county ordinances. It's not something we really get involved in typically because their standards are changing all the time. Their gas, electric being the two most dangerous, obviously, and so, you know, the way they install their utilities and how deep they are and the horizontal and vertical separation is all regulated by them. And when they sign a contract with a developer, they have their own inspectors that come out and make sure everything is installed appropriately. Say a developer will not get Comcast or CenturyLink or Connex or All West unless they sign a contract with them and install the utilities per their workbook, standards and specifications. So I'm hoping that we can leave our wording as generic as possible to give, short of including their standards, which are always changing, meaning we would have to change this frequently as well. Short of including all of their standards in this, I'm hoping we can just say dry utilities are required and then let the market and the developer make the decision on what choice they make with the dry utilities. There are some guidelines in here as to when they should be installed and the crossings, but I wouldn't recommend we get too much deeper than that, because if we do, we almost start quoting their standards and specifications, and I'm afraid we could miss the mark quite easily on that.
So one quick question, Mark. Were you done with your thought process?
Yes.
One example would be gas, the other would be cable. Let's say there's a subdivision of 20 lots somewhere, and there is no gas within a half a mile. There's no cable within a half a mile, but yet in our ordinance we say you have to have, you're required to have these utilities. How do we get through that?
That's a great question, and it's really up to you, because do you remember when Weber County, I'm asking you this, and of course you would remember this, when they went from propane to gas, when they ran gas up there. And this is, Weber County's not the only instance I've seen in my career, but when they know something is coming, then they will typically require those be installed ahead of time, knowing that in the future gas or cable will get out to that area. But really, in some areas in Morgan County, Commissioner Anderson, that might not be very practical or feasible. And so I could see, and that's really up to you guys whether you want to require this wording for very rural areas, because this is very appropriate for subdivisions that are fairly near utilities, but very remote subdivisions that cannot get cable, they'll probably be using satellite and propane, right? And so, yeah, I do think there should be and that's going to be up to you guys as how you want to word that. Like it'd be, there's got to be some general wording, I guess. And well, yeah, like, well,
There's that wording.
or as, you know, or maybe an exception put in here to where the county commission could decide not to require certain utilities if the development is remote enough, because it would be very hard to put in one statement what you had asked me, because the conditions vary so much, don't they, around here? And so I don't know how, I mean, nobody likes exceptions, I don't see that that's a real big one though, because I think you guys will know. It's going to make, like you said, Commissioner Wilson, common sense as to whether a dry utility would be appropriate in certain places. You know the gas company's not going to run 15 miles to serve one property. If you know that the gas company, or if we feel like they've given us signs that they're heading in that direction, then yeah, it's going to be very much less expensive for these people to put the dry utilities in, the subdividers to put them in now. Again, a lot of it's market driven. Most subdividers that I know would put these in so that they wouldn't have to in the future, and they can tell the purchasers, potential purchasers, look, I've already installed the future gas line just in case. So,
That's running an easement across the front of the property.
yeah, so we have public utility easements, with every plat. We have, public utility easements on the front and back, and, frequently on the sides. And so there's a 10-foot public utility easement on all your lots that have been, subdivided in the last probably 20, 25 years. So you have the right-of-way lines, and then 10 feet, 10 feet. And some communities, Brigham City's doing 15. So, and who knows? But we've been requiring 10 up here, just like every other community on the other side of the mountain. I don't know what Summit County is requiring, but 10 foot's been the universally accepted. I should say universally, locally accepted easement width. So yeah, that's where they go.
Go ahead, Jared.
Another comment I have is, I went through almost the exact same story you had at Weaver County as you did at Roy, and it saved us a lot of money also. That really raised a flag for me of hoping that the county has a franchise agreement with, at the very least, Rocky Mountain Power and Dominion Gas, and I don't know if we do.
When I wrote this down, I actually have a note in my planner to ask Garrett tomorrow whether we have one with, most importantly, Rocky Mountain Power and the gas company, because I've actually been in meetings like this where I didn't see a franchise agreement. I saw a PR person from Rocky Mountain Power propose a franchise agreement that was approved that evening. I had never seen it, and they just agreed to pay for any changes that they had to make, which doesn't make sense because it's your right of way and they are guests in your right of way. So if you need them to move, or if you need them to do something with their utility, the public shouldn't be paying for that because again, they're guests in the right of way. So franchise agreements are so crucial, and it is a note I have to talk to Josh and Jared about.
So the sooner the better, and the reason I say that is we've got a situation right now, as we speak, going on in Croydon, where Dominion has come in. They've cut 2 feet off the edge of our road for nearly a mile, and they're digging it up to put a new line in. Not only is it inconvenient, but the problem is, you know what happens when you take that much off of a road.
Yeah.
Not to mention, this is a road that was repaved 4 years ago, so now we've got a road that's gonna be patched for the next how long?
In order to make it whole, you'd have to go further than that 2 feet.
Absolutely. So,
yes.
and we need to make sure we've got some teeth to make sure that they fix those things in the future, because I'm really concerned about the integrity of that road. As soon as I saw them saw cutting that road, it's nearly a mile that they've cut. And it varies from about that much of the edge of the road to that much.
Did they get a right-of-way permit on that? See, I don't think they even got a right-of-way permit, which is.
Double the fine.
Which we need to do something about that. I brought it up with Brett, but I think, don't they get the right-of-way permit through your office?
They have to get it, so if he doesn't know about it, then I think they need to be stopped. And Commissioner McConnell, or if Garrett's still on the line, it seems to me that if one doesn't exist, then work should be stopped until it is in place. Gosh, we haggled with one of the utility providers in Roy for 3 years because they didn't want to do what was best for the citizens, meaning the people that have to pay to fix the roads. And this was just a blanket franchise agreement they had that a lot of people didn't look at. And so as far as I'm concerned, I'm glad this dry utility thing came up because it keyed this franchise agreement issue with me, which I got all straightened out in my other communities, but hadn't even thought about it up here.
So Jared hit on the items that I'm concerned about. Just in places where it doesn't make sense to either run gas or internet, cable. I think there needs to be some carve out for that, and I don't know what that looks like. I don't want it to have to come to the commission every time. But maybe if it's over a certain size, maybe it should. I also think, if I'm going to do a 2-lot subdivision, for example, in Croydon, and I'm way up the road where there's not gas for a mile, it doesn't make sense for me to install any infrastructure for that, because my 2-lot subdivision is going to make no difference, even if they did run gas up there.
You're still
at
going
a
to stay
later
on
point.
propane, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think we just need to think about how we carve that out or what we put in there, and maybe it's as simple as, our building official could look at, reasonable exceptions, or if that dry utility is not within a certain distance of the property, or if the subdivision is under a certain size, or, just some criteria.
Yeah.
I love the verbiage here, though. I think this is great.
Good, and if I may, I think the county engineer is probably the one that could look at that best, or have the best overall insight on that, as far as what exceptions could be made, and you could defer that, what I was talking about, to the county engineer at his discretion. But meaning we need to add some more language to this. This thing's just never going to get approved, is it?
I was gonna say, Mark, aren't you our county engineer?
He is.
Oh, yeah, but what I...
But no, I agree with you. The
I-
county engineer probably is the better one, because you would have insight into
The utility.
the utility system and future
yeah, but-
expansion of that system.
But we've got to add some more wording in here. What you brought up is very legitimate, and certainly here in Morgan County, and it's something we just can't put a blanket requirement on this for every piece of property in Morgan County, so.
We just don't think Josh is busy enough, so we just keep
Well,
piling it on.
I'm
That's
gonna,
why you
I'm
needed
gonna take
another
it from
planner.
here. And
What
I
if-
think Jeremy's working on it now, and so I'll actually come up with some new wording, and we'll run it by Garrett, because I'm obviously concerned about, before we bring it back to you, and we'll, the three of us will get together, and we'll leave you alone. And it'll be, let me ask you this, though, at this point. Are we good with what I've proposed here tonight? And then we need to address the topic that, this other topic about where this wouldn't be required, okay?
One question I have is on this county-approved franchise agreements, if we have internet providers, are we going to enter into a franchise agreement with a particular internet provider to put in fiber?
What he's suggesting is that we would enter into such an agreement with all of them.
Okay.
Anyone who's locating their utility within the right of way.
Yeah, the issue I have is wherever I drive in any of the communities that I work with, I see drilling going on and underground, and then my first question is, okay, do you have a right-of-way permit? Does the city or county even know you're doing this? And thirdly, do you have an agreement with them on this? Because many of them just go in there and start installing things without these agreements. And the agreements are just crucial. don't know. Commissioner McConnell, how do you feel about that as far as, I mean, franchise agreements to me are what make the most sense, if you look at it in terms of, hey, you're guessing the county's right of way, and that the county meaning the citizens of Morgan County who own it.
I think they make a lot of sense. I'm not sure what we have, you know.
Yeah.
And with respect to the language, I mean, I think you can qualify the first sentence just by saying, except as otherwise approved by the county engineer due to the remote location of the applicable project.
Will you please make that motion so we can get this thing done?
And then all underground
My head's gonna be
utilities
on the
would be,
chopping block tonight.
all required underground utilities, you would just insert the word required, tying back to that qualification.
So
I like that.
Yeah, that has my full recommendation.
I move to make his suggestion the right one.
Well, hold up. We gotta go into public hearing.
I know. I
I've
was
failed
just
to do
making a
that
joke.
twice now, so I've gotta get it right at least once during this meeting. Is there any other discussion before we do that? Okay, thank you. All right, we'll look for a motion to adjourn the public meeting and convene a public hearing regarding the dry utilities text amendment.
Make that motion.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we are now in public hearing. Seeing no public comment, we will look for a motion to adjourn the public hearing and reconvene the public meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we'll look for a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the proposed dry utilities text amendment with the following additional qualifications. In the first sentence, insert as an introductory clause, except as otherwise approved by the county engineer due to the remote location of the applicable project, comma, and then you would do a lowercase a, all utilities shall be provided. In the third sentence, between the word all and underground, insert the word required. And the other changes as previously shown.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
On and on.
He'll give you a copy of that if you need it, Julie. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You go, okay, make sure you got it. Excellent. All right. We reached that part of our agenda that we hope is fast. Commissioner comments?
Start, because I'm supposed to, right?
Yep, you're first, Commissioner Fackrell.
Okay, let me quickly go through it. The, coming up, and this is for everybody's information, not just you guys, but the public. November 8th, that's tomorrow, the chamber is having a lunch and learn. If anybody wants to attend that, they can. It's at 11:30 until 1, if you can attend that. Also, Hometown Christmas is coming up on December 2nd. And there will also be, in conjunction with Hometown Christmas, there will be a nativity display at the Rock Chapel on December 1st. And more information will be coming out as far as times. Also, the Economic Development or Economic Opportunity Board found out that we are doing it's called a quad fishing tournament that the state parks are putting on between Morgan and Summit County. Ice fishing tournament, so they will be at Lost Creek on January 13th, Rockport on January 20th, Echo on February 10th, and East Canyon on February 17th. And they would like, well, Summit County's already offered to sponsor part of it. We have not yet because we don't know exactly how much. And if we did, it would come out of the tourism. Because that's one of the big things, and we will be promoting it there. And I would like to know, and I'm not sure if you know, the enterprise zone, how often do we have to renew that? Do you know, Mike?
I don't know. That's
Okay.
a good question.
Because the city has to renew theirs now, this year, and I don't know if ours is coming up or not.
I would bet it is, but I don't know.
Okay, do you
Haven't
have a,
approved enterprise zone?
we did since we became commissioner.
Well, actually, come to think of it, it's in the city, isn't it? Is there
The
one
enter,
that-
no,
that
we
isn't?
had a county-wide enterprise zone
Oh,
that
you're
you
right,
put
you
in
did.
right after we became a commission.
Yeah.
And so I don't know who we need to contact for that, but I can look for it. And we've got some grants starting. We also need to, I need to know, because I thought this had happened, did the IBI report get approved or just was it presented to us? That's the Mountain
I
Green
don't-
Town Center.
I don't think it was approved, I think it was just presented to us, but I'm not sure that there was, what there is to approve. I mean, in theory, the information contained within that should probably be placed into our general plan,
Okay.
but the study itself, I don't know if there's anything for us to approve.
Okay. I didn't know how that worked, but there's been some questions on that, whether or not the IBI study needs to be approved by us and then to be put into the general plan, or whether or not it just, we have to approve that individually. IBI study was the Mountain Green planning.
It's that small area study.
Small
that
area
they did
study.
For Peterson and Mountain Green area.
The way those there. Yeah. Typically,
Okay.
they've been put in the appendices of the general plan, as opposed to adopted as part of the general plan. Those area plans typically should be reviewed by the planner, and then the planner would review them, make changes, or make, not actually change them, but make recommendations to changes, thank you. And then it would go to the planning commission, the planning commission make a recommendation for addition to the general plan, either the current version, or we would take it all together as part of the future draft, and then the county commission would adopt it. Where you want those in the general plan is really up to you. If you want to add them in as elements or chapters on their own, we can do that, or they can be put in the appendices like they always have.
Okay, so do we need to direct it towards the planning commission or what?
Yeah, we probably should. I'd really like us to get our general plan finished out too, and I don't know what kind of resources might be needed for that, but maybe if you could think about that and look into it and let us know what you need.
I did ask for 25,000 in the budget to help pay for that.
Did we put that in? I think we did.
Yes, we did.
So
Yes,
there
sir.
should be 25,000 in the next budget cycle to help push that forward.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
There also is one, and I don't have it in front of me, but if anybody wants to, there is a one-step location at utah.gov for us to be able to look at all the grants available to our county. And I'll have to give that to you and send it out by email. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wilson.
Just have three things. Our WHS meeting, we were granted our full budget again this year, which was great. It's cut the budgets. And nothing but compliments on the way our senior citizens.
That's awesome.
CJCC still going over the recidivism stuff, but we're almost getting to concert with the state on that. And, the fair board, as far as the fair board goes, we have delivered the baskets.
Oh, thank you.
They were
Awesome.
extremely grateful.
Awesome. Did you get receipts turned in on those?
No,
Okay. Get them turned in so we can get you made whole. Thank you for doing that.
that's it.
Okay.
That's all I
Commissioner
got.
Anderson.
I got a couple things, but before I mention them, I think I figured out what your problem is, Chair. And I think it's that you're Twitter pated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
Laura being here tonight.
Laura's here, and so I'm
And
distracted.
The only reason I want to throw that out there is because last Sunday I was almost ran over in the parking lot. Luckily, I was walking 3 miles per hour. You guys were driving about 2 miles per hour, so it was very close.
For the record, she told me not to hit you, and I said, I'm going to try to hit him.
Two items I have. We have UAC meeting, or Association of Counties meeting next week. And I believe a handful of us are planning on heading down there, so look forward to hearing a report on what we pick up from that conference and what we learn. The other thing I want to mention publicly and is that we have our county administrator job position open. And so for anybody listening or anybody interested, we're interested in receiving resumes. That's all I got.
Awesome.
And
Thank you.
Mike, I know Juliet asked us when we wanted to close that. Is there a date? Or do you want to just leave
I'd
it
like
till
to hold
next
for
Friday?
another week or two,
Yeah,
to be
me too.
honest. I mean, we're getting a lot of applications. Many of the ones that I've seen so far aren't what I was hoping for.
Right.
But that's okay. I mean, I think it's better to cast a wide net and catch something good than, yeah. There was a couple in there that were good. I don't mean to say that any of them. I think we ought to wait at least till
I
the
think
next
we ought.
meeting and then make a determination. Unless anybody's wanting to move quicker than that.
I'd love to move quicker, but it won't happen.
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of us are gone next week anyway,
Right.
so it doesn't make
I
sense to
was
close it.
thinking more about the same time as you. Leave it open until the next meeting, and then at that point, we can have our set up interviews and everything after Thanksgiving.
Just after Thanksgiving. Yep, I think that sounds great. I just have, I guess, one item of information. Starting Monday, this last Monday, the Croydon Bridge is now closed again. So we're driving the long route again. Some of us have PTSD from that, and probably will for some time to come. But anyway, we've got the schedule calls for about 2 months of that. First week of January, they should have one lane open, we hope, and about 3 weeks following that, so around the 1st of February, it should be open, both lanes, we hope. So anyway, keep good thoughts in your mind on that one. That's all I had, Commissioner McConnell.
So I participate in the Morgan County Chamber Orchestra and Choral Society. They do 2 performances a year. One is the Messiah, the other is the Lamb of God in the spring, Messiah in December. And then as well as the Morgan Community Choir. Both typically perform at the high school. The high school has risers that we utilize, and they're 2 feet wide, which means that you stand for the whole performance. And that's difficult for some members of the community choir and the choral society. I mean, I may be one of the younger people in the community choir. And so the choral society asked if the county would be willing to help fund the purchase of 3-foot risers, which would permit people to have chairs on the risers. They're willing to, there's a member of the choir that has a place where they could be stored, and they're willing to allow the community choir and what other groups need them, even the high school if they needed them, to utilize them. But if there was any funding that we could help put towards acquiring that, no one gets paid in those organizations. We all pay to sing. And then in the community choir, we also have to bring cookies for people to eat afterwards. So it's a volunteer
Quite the
thing. It's quite enjoyable. You know, for me, I love to sing, and so it's a great thing. And I think it's significant addition to the culture of the community generally to have the choirs, the high school plays, and all of those things I think are really great. So I don't know if that would be something. I think the risers would be costing about $20,000. And I don't know if there's funding from any of the art or grants or any of those sort of things that we could help out with that to some degree or another. That would be really great. I could come back with a specific proposal if,
Yeah, I think that'd
if
be
you're
good.
open to the idea. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I would like to go into closed session to discuss a pending or threatened litigation matter as well.
Okay. All right, that brings us to the end of Commissioner comments. We do have a request to go into closed session. We'll do that, and then following that, we'll adjourn. So I'll look for a motion to go into the closed session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. We'll move into closed session.
Yeah, I'm
following
gonna
which-